Welcome everybody to another episode of Talking Nerdy in the Bedroom. We have another special episode. God, how many times we've done this now? Did it once with just Dennis and I. Did it once with some others. Is this the third time or the fourth time? Third time. Okay, so this is the third time we're doing a Zoom eFed podcast while talking about WWE. This time we of course have Dennis back, who hasn't missed a single one yet. He likes talking about this shit. And then we have, for the first time joining us, with his schedule actually permitting it this time, is Dave. Dave, also known as Paul Burcho, William Regal. God, I don't remember how many other people you
God,
played.
I don't know. A lot of people, but definitely virtual primarily. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think most people, if they knew GWF, knew you as Burcho.
And the pirate in particular, I would say.
The pirate was so fun. So let's just jump into reminiscing about shit. I was telling Dennis before you joined, I love that you and I joined roughly about the same time to GWF. And I always looked at us as Austin Rock in WWFE in the sense of they had a feud before any titles. Then they had the Intercontinental title and they feuded. And then they moved up to the World Championship and they feuded. And then they didn't even need to be a title involved and they feuded. And that is very reminiscent of us throughout the years of GWF. And we had all that history to pull off of because you and I were kind of idiots and just stuck with our weird ass characters. You with Bercho, me with Canyon, and we just kept them for a decade or something like that, and had all that history. So every time we had a new match, we could just pull from that. Like, hey, you beat me last time. I beat you this time. This happened last time. You were a pirate one time. You were gay. So much history there.
I tend to agree with that take. Obviously there was a certain time where I said I need to be more serious though, otherwise I would have kept doing the pirate gimmick forever, right?
Yeah.
So at some point I said I need to be a little bit less facetious, I guess.
Well, I think that's like wrestling in general. Like you look at the characters that are very funny and they're fun to watch, but they're never going to win the big title. Now, E-Feds are a little bit different. We
Yeah.
had Crash Holly win the world title. We had Pogo the Clown win the title. We had a bunch of other like one-off characters that normally aren't going to get that shot in like a real big wrestling promotion. They might in an indie fed, but if you're that character that's not taking themselves seriously, you're probably not going to get that strap. And I feel with Canyon's character, it had to develop to get to the point of being in the main event. And same with Burchell. Like if you didn't go heel with Burchell, you probably could have, but it would have taken even longer. And when you have that ability to hit the switch and go the other side of it and either be darker or more edgier with the character rather than just jokes, I think it makes your character more believable and it made the role plays better.
Yeah, and the cartoonist world champions, they never really last a while, right? Like they have their time and then they tend to fade.
Yes.
So
It's hard to keep that up.
yeah.
Like you can have moments of brilliance of this comedic character, but then it fades. Like Crash Holly, Mick Walsh won the world title. He held it for a month and he lost the title afterwards. Like he had a epic run in our Survivor Series. We did our own version of the WWF Survivor Series tournament, the one night tournament to crown a new champion. And he won it then, but then lost it the next month. Like he had one good streak of that role play that was world title caliber, and then it went away. So I definitely agree. Like it kind of like fades off. It does make me curious if Dennis remembers. So obviously Pogo the Clown. His was a little bit funny, but also a little bit edgy because that's who the character was. Do you remember any of those Pogo role plays that have stuck in your head? Or do you remember, and I think we talked about it in another podcast, but the reaction to people when Pogo actually deserved to win the title?
I can't say I do. I remember the character. I kind of remember the role plays being that, I don't want to say edgy, but like the maniacal, stereotypical evil clown kind of like, okay, but you can take it another level. It's not Doink the evil clown. It's a step beyond, right? So it was just that kind of I think it turns back to kind of like what I think thought about last time. It's almost an exercise in creative writing. It especially when you choose a character that is not on TV every week. Okay, we had a rule. It has to be a real character. All right, you found a very obscure one. Nobody has an idea on any backstory of the real character. So go with it. Make your own. And I think that's kind of where that character went. Is just it didn't matter what they did. It was hey, I wanted to be an evil clown. Here you go. I found a clown character and I'm gonna make it my own. So it becomes that creative writing exercise of okay, what do I want to do? How do I you don't have to worry about being funny or being evil all the time. You just write and you see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything. I think it was I think it was a time when I want to say the GWF as far as I don't want to say styles. Writing styles is not the right thing, but what kind of qualified as a good role play? I think you kind of started to see it change around that time where we went from, hey, you wrote a couple paragraphs, that's probably fine, to okay, now we're setting the scene. Now we're going. We're not just like, hey, let me talk about this guy. It's all right. We're walking into almost like we were talking about before with setting up a more cinematic promo style. That's kind of where we ended up going, and I think that's where some of like Pogo and then Richards and things like that, where you kind of have a little more free reign to just take it a little bit. But I can't say I remember anything jumping out at me as far as Pogo the Clown, but I think it was just that like I think I remember like thinking like, wow, this is a character I've never heard of. It's a character I have no backstory on, and this is pretty good. I think it's worth a shot. As weird as it sounds, it doesn't matter who you're going against. This is where we want to be as far as writing styles.
Yeah.
And I think that's what led to the win. I think that's just kind of where I was like, wow, okay, let's see what happens.
So I'm wondering with that, because so I want to backtrack a little bit and just ask Dave the question, and then I've got a question about what you just said to Dave. So Dave, when you picked Burchell, I talked about it in the podcast either the first time or the second time Dennis and I did this, where I picked Canyon because literally there was 120 something people on the roster, and I didn't really have much of a choice. Like I was trying to think of any character because I wanted to join this EFED that was so far ahead of everybody else's EFED. So I just literally was going through like a roster online and trying to find a character that I knew of, that I kind of liked, and the one that I thought I could roleplay as, and boom, Chris Canyon. So how did you pick Dave Burchell? Because I think at the time you picked him, he was still a pirate at that time, right?
He definitely was. That gimmick had already started. I think maybe he got injured, and then he was probably off TV, whatever. But the last time he was on TV, he was the pirate. Yeah, I think it was partly what you said, right? Just a clogged roster. That was definitely a piece of it. But I had written as him before once, as the pirate gimmick, and maybe you know it. It was called WIW. Does that ring a bell to you?
It does ring a bell to me. I'm trying to think. As soon as you
It's from way
said that,
back.
name of the owner popped in my head, and now it's gone.
Yeah, I don't quite remember the name of the owner, but it was definitely I had some experience as him beforehand, not a ton, but I really did like the character. So it wasn't just, oh, this is the only guy like reasonable left. It wasn't like that situation. So I had some kind of genuine desire to write it, but also, yeah, cloud roster. I think my very first character in GWF was, if I'm not mistaken, Tyson Tomko. Because that was a case of there's literally nobody available, and I like Christian, so yeah, I'm gonna go with this guy.
Makes sense. So to expand on what Dennis said, when he was talking about Pogo, they were able to set up scenes differently rather than just, hey, I'm in the ring, here's my promo. And I feel like with Burchell, especially with that pirate character, that sets you up for a lot of funny or crazy things that you're able to do with that character. Is that what was enticing for you? And I don't remember how long, but I want to say you kept that character for at least 3 years as the pirate.
Yeah,
Is that what
it
kept
started in
it?
2006, right? And then as I recall, it was around 2009, maybe when some kind of heel turn happened. That's also, of course, not coincidentally when the real Paul Burchill came back, roughly, right? As a non-pirate character. So there was definitely some not coincidence there. But also 3 years, yeah, it was long enough. It was definitely getting stale as I remember it. But yeah, I think part of it was that kind of like allure of writing, basically like fantasy writing at that point, right? Creative writing exercise, not just the standard write a promo type. E-Fed writing, which especially back then was your promo, that was kind of the approach from that.
Yeah. Are there any that stand out in your mind that you did as the pirate Paul Burchill? Ones that you're just like, damn, that was a good one.
You cut off for a few seconds, but you asking about like role plays.
Yeah, I was asking if there is one pirate Paul Burchill one that stands out to you that you're like, damn, that was a good promo.
I mean, from that, it's so hard to recall from that time period. I know, I don't think it really counts, but there was the one where that I wrote like right before GWF closed as the pirate, right? Against you, right? And
Yep.
like it was the last, well, it was supposed to be the last ever card, of course.
Before they reopened it again another 12 times.
A million times, yeah.
ECW all over again, boys.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. It's a travesty. Yeah, I don't know. I remember liking that one. There's really no one in particular comes to mind right now. I just remember I had this like with Birchall, I had like this sidekick of his that was also a pirate, and he was always in the role plays, but he was never on TV somehow. So it was a sidekick that only appeared in the role plays and never on TV because that was also a pirate. Maybe he was imagining it. I don't know.
Could have been. Should have explored that more.
Yeah, he never did a run in or anything. It's weird.
It's your version of Little Jimmy, like with R-Truth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Dennis, I'm gonna take you back a bit, and I know it's hard because you read a lot. And we're also talking about now almost or more than 20 years ago. Do you remember any Paul Burchill role plays? Do you remember any Canyon role plays?
I can't say I can pick out any role plays anymore.
That's fair.
I can go back. I remember some of the early ones. I remember. I think I talked about this last time. Is there were a couple that stuck out because I think it was one of either Bill or Kevin's friends at the time, and he was Buff Bagwell, but he had Mr. Fuji as his manager, and it was just silly, right? Because it was Mr. Fuji being a stereotypical Asian character at the time, right? No, right or wrong now, it's a different story. But it was just silly. And just it was like Mr. Fuji throwing in a one-liner as Buff is talking. It's like, okay. I remember that just kind of being off the wall. But I remember it was like Mr. Fuji would say, "Oh, Buff, you the stuff." Like that was it. And then immediately you throw an Asian accent in your head and you're reading that and you giggle. Like I'm like, all right. That's what it is. That's how it was at the time. So can I remember way back, and remember when GWF role plays were a paragraph of just text, no layouts, no scenes, no multiple novels, a paragraph, almost like a guest book entry. That's what I remember. But pulling out particular role plays, now I'll probably wake up tomorrow and be like, "Oh, I remember that one now." But off the top of my head, no, probably not.
So I remember one. I don't think I could set the scene, but it was one with Dave and I, and it was either for the European title or the Intercontinental title. And I remember reading it and being like, "God damn it, I've lost." Like, not a shot. This is really fun to read. Mine's a good role play, but it's not fun to read. It's very in character. It sets everything up I want to set up, but it wasn't fun. And that's something I actually took from you, Dave, is when I was reading that, even when your character got serious later on, they were still a fun read. And that's what I've learned. Like, you can't just write the words. It has to be something that's enticing to people to want to read, especially if you're talking 1,000 words, 2,000 words, 3,000 words. Like, there's got to be something to keep people going. Now, when I was running GWF, I had to read them either way. But if there was somebody there that could grip me in some way, and sometimes it's just the writing style, sometimes it's just how you say things, sometimes it is the scene, if it's not just the same thing I've read 100 times, there's something there that grips you. And I remember specifically reading it and being pissed off because I think I'd like just won the title the month before and being like, well, that was a good run. I didn't want that title anyway. That's fine. Dave can have it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's that's an honor. I wish I could remember what it was, but it's lost the time, right? Because
you were on a ship. Your character was on a
sure,
ship.
that was probably a lot, a lot of them. He was drinking rum, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and talking to apparently a imaginary person.
Yeah, and maybe, and honestly, as I think back, maybe that pirate sidekick guy was influenced by, because Kenyon always had the agent, right? That was
Oh yeah, Canyon loved his agent, man.
With him. Maybe I was just ripping you off. I don't know.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah, it could be.
So the reason that I think, because I want to say, I'm trying to remember how many iterations of Paul did you do? Because obviously you did the pirate, then you turned heel, but I don't think he was sadistic yet. Then you eventually went down that way, and then you also went back to being a face for a bit. So like, do you remember how many iterations of Paul you did?
Well, right. There's the initial heel turn, right? And then at some point after that, there was the solidifying the kind of vicious heel thing. There was a spot where he stabbed Steven Richards' eyes out, right? Or single eye with a key.
With a fork?
It was a key, I think.
Key?
And
okay.
the key had significance somehow that probably only Ash would remember what the significance was. But you know, it definitely had some significance why it was a key. And then yeah, then he turned, as I remember, maybe around 2011, he was more babyface. That's when the Daphne stuff came into play too, right?
Yep.
And then I want to say he stayed face a while. At some point he turned heel after that, but he had to have turned heel after that.
I remember when you turned heel, if I'm remembering correctly, you had a world title shot and you had Money in the Bank.
Okay, yeah.
And you were against Brad, I think, who was RVD.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to have faced Brad at some point, right?
He beat you
I
for
do
the
remember
title.
winning the. Okay, yeah, and I cashed
in the same night.
Did I cash in on him right after?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I think I kind of remember I had to tell you it was happening.
Yeah, because
you were writing the show.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember. Like, Brad wrote the match, and then we said, "Yep, okay, that's gonna be the match." And then we had to add in the extra stuff after, and I don't think Brad had any idea because he just assumed, "Yes, I know I've won this match." And
was it like maybe like a no-show opponent that he had that night? I don't remember.
No, I don't think it was a no-show opponent. It was you. Like, you had the title and the Money in the Bank. So he went against you that night, beat you legitimately,
won the title,
or you were allowing him to beat you. Like, you still role played, but you're like, hey, have him win because I'm cashing in and going heel.
I hope I wasn't so arrogant to say I'm allowing him to win.
Well, sometimes, you know, you're like, doesn't matter whether my role play is better or not, just I want them to win.
Sure, yeah. So you didn't really even have to make a judgment call at all.
Correct.
You knew what the outcome was, yeah.
Yeah, which made it easy. It meant I didn't really have to read anything unless I
no, you just not at all. Zero.
Yeah, and I remember because somebody had to tell Brad after because he thought he knew the end of the match.
Oh yeah, he didn't even bother looking. Yeah,
right, because he's like, well, I already know how it ends. And I remember him messaging me after, and he's like, "You son of a bitch!" That was like, he wasn't mad. He was like, "That was." It blew my mind. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know. Somebody had to tell me that this happened, and I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm still the champion. Like, I beat him. What do you mean?" So I love those moments that we were able to do, which reminds me of like when wrestling's able to do something like that. You look at Seth Rollins.
That's the beauty of the Money in the Bank, right? Especially like in an e-fed setting, because obviously in the real life setting, the wrestlers know somebody's cashing in. But in EFED, you can truly
Wrestlers who
surprise
have
people.
the title
Oh, what's that?
now. I said usually the wrestlers who have the title know, but not necessarily everybody
Oh,
else.
sure. True. Yeah. Right. Not the person that's competing in the match directly, which in this case, yeah, he didn't know.
Right.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I remember trying to play. It was a tough thing to plan. I remember maybe sitting on Money in the Bank for a while. I don't really remember, but
You were
definitely that.
sitting on it. You won it at WrestleMania, and I want to say that was towards the end of the year, like November.
Okay, yeah, it rings a bell. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And yeah, obviously heel turn after that, and then it just gets fuzzy, honestly. Maybe that started to become like the Twitter era of GWF.
Oh God, the Twitter era.
I'm not sure if that's ever been addressed on here, but
Oh God, I hated it so much. I understood why we did it. People stopped role playing, like fully role playing, and we were trying to do something to like spark some interest. Hey, let's try social media role playing, and I hated it so fucking much. And trying to read all those things and then trying to tweet the results because we did the results via Twitter too. Oh my God, I hated it so fucking much. I would have rather just shut that thing down at the time. I like instead of going for another however long we went, I would have just shut the shit down.
well, yeah, it's sort of like, you're doing it not even half-assed. It's like quarter-assed
Yeah.
or less than that.
And tweets have limits. So I guess you could link to our URL, which some people were doing. Man, I do remember getting. I don't remember how I stumbled upon it. Like, I think I found it on Twitter by accident, and I'm like, "What is this?" And then I think I went back and logged into the site, and like, this is weird. And I think there was a Discord, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was a GWF Discord as well. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening anymore, man. I'm old and I'm not with it, but more power to them if this is working. I'm like, okay. Like,
I mean, it wasn't. We were grasping at straws. I was the old guy going, I don't want to change. Like, what are we doing? And they were like, no, this will be better.
I mean, yeah, was it like a 2-1 outnumber? Was that like what happened?
I got outvoted.
That's what happened? Yeah. I
I
should have
remember
abstained. I should have abstained and then
the big deal in my time was we were using the old format of, I'll call it a guest book because that's what it was. Let's face it, that's how it started when the site was little. So you always saw every role play one after another, after another, after another. And then sometimes somebody would screw up their HTML, so it would blow up the rest of the people's HTML. And then people wanted I think it was board host kind of format where it was more of a forum kind of look, and you would just see the posts and they're segregated. And so that was the big deal around my time. Much less getting Twitter involved.
Did people complain about that though? Because like when I joined, I loved like when I first joined, it was the guest book. Then when I rejoined like a year later, that's when you guys had the version that we basically used for all time, which I loved. I love the setup of that.
There was a little drop down so people could toggle back and forth between the two layouts. And the only reason that existed was because some people liked the old guest book and some people liked the new forum. Like, I thought the forum was fine. Like, granted, I started with the guest book, so I really can't say anything. I thought the forum layout was a good way to keep it isolated and you could follow things quicker. I could scroll through the list of like people's titles and who it was, as long as they put in some kind of meaningful subject. Some people had a problem doing that, so but you could scroll through the list, so I thought that was fine. But yes, people were afraid of change then. So change always bad. Grr.
Again, I was on the other side going, I didn't want to change. So for that stuff, but I felt like there was a reason for it, which was I felt what was going to happen did happen. Like it just became less and less GWF and more something else. And
something bad. And it never recovered, right? And that's what led to it closing, basically.
Yeah.
And then the only time a real show happened was the last show.
Yes, yeah, a real show. Or no, didn't we still do role plays for pay-per-views? Like it was just the weekly ones. that I thought was Twitter, but the
Oh yeah, I think you're
monthly
right.
ones was still regular role plays. It was just like, well, people can't be asked to do role plays every week. But they can tweet 160 characters, and let's just, maybe they want to do 3 tweets, so it's actually like, 480 characters. And it's like, oh my God, okay, whatever, I guess. Um,
Were
the
people
or
actually doing it? I mean, maybe
Some
like
were, for the most
Aaron
part.
was, yeah.
Do you remember, speaking of Aaron, and he wanted to be on the podcast. Something came up last minute. He's hoping to be on the next one. But I know he's watching, and I remember that when he did the God, he had his Snitsky one, his Snitsky GWF Snitsky, but somebody tweeted at the actual Snitsky, and then I remember him responding, going like, because he thought it was the real person tweeting him about, like, I'm gonna kick your ass, yada yada yada. That was the only good part about Twitter for GWF. That was the only good part. The rest of it was ass.
So we were relevant for 5 minutes. Perfect.
It was. I mean,
Yes,
he wasn't relevant like at the time he responded, but we were more relevant than we were. That part was
yeah.
hilarious.
The funny thing is now it's like on Twitter now or whatever it's called, there's these tons of roleplay accounts of wrestlers. Some of them, I don't know, trying to legitimately be the character. Some of them a little more nefarious,
Really?
perverted maybe. Yeah,
I did
some
not
really
know.
weird accounts out there. You don't want to look into them.
Guess I'm not with it on the Twitter
Uh,
sphere or the X sphere or whatever the heck it is
yeah.
today.
The point is like you'll see like, oh, this isn't, say, Becky Lynch's account. This is a roleplay account. I've seen a lot of accounts like that.
Interesting.
So maybe we were prophetic or something.
Well, I also know. So back in the day, and Dennis might remember some of this. Some of the characters created their own web page, and I think you linked some of them on the roster page. And it's because WWFE had some of roster pages for the specific people within their own company. So people started creating those themselves on our side too. So it looked kind of legit, but obviously it was for the eFed. So I'm guessing that's kind of what the Twitter thing did too. Is people were like, okay, I'm creating this, it's fake, but it kind of looks legit, and kind of copying what WWE is doing, and that have been doing for the last, I don't know, 10 years with Twitter/X, of trying to like promote themselves on there. It always seems like they're copying that.
It was always a way to. I know people really wanted to do their own little layouts. Right? They had their vision of what they want. Colors that they wanted the wrestler to represent. Like, okay, we picture Booker T is always in your mind. He's always like fire colors. Red, yellow, black, white. Kind of the colors you go to. But maybe I want to role play, but I wanted to have that purple, or I want it to be something. Okay, I want to be able to put whatever light I want on it. It also gave people an opportunity to like archive their role plays, and they could keep everything. Hey, here's my role plays from the end of time. They're always here. Even some people, we had enough space. I had rigged up a hosting under the GWF banner, so you could get gwfwrestling.com/insert name here. And through the admin pages, you could actually upload role plays and upload HTML and do all that on the GWF web space. So you didn't have to go to, like, I don't know what was popular at the time. It wasn't GeoCities, but let's just use that. It's probably post GeoCities, but if you had your own space, you could link to it. But if you needed space, log into your account. You get 10 megs of space or whatever was big at the time. So people took advantage of it. People did at times use it for other purposes, which was a little weird, but role plays for other feds, or they set up their own little homepage for other things. Like, it's not the point of this, but I understand the point of them wanting their own little web slice to make it their own. It's just an extension of that creative writing. Actually, okay, I'm taking this time to invest in this character and make it trying to write my thoughts. at the time, people wanted to do web stuff because that was big. So here's the arts side of that one. I want to make some graphics and things at the same time.
Dave, were you about to say something? I saw you unmuted, so I was gonna talk, but it looked like
No, not necessarily. No, you can go ahead.
okay. Well, I'm gonna ask you a question anyway. Did you ever do something like that? Like, I know that I use the RP hosting within GWF, and I created a site that you could go to that I doubt anybody did, but it literally had every role play I ever did as Canyon, every role play I ever did as Eric Young, every role play I ever did as Miss Brooks, every role play I ever did as The Rock, all under the GWF banner. And like I had that, and that was more or less for me, not really for everybody else. But did you have anything like that you had for your characters, or Paul Burchill, that kind of like had everything there for you at your fingertips?
First of all, I recall your site. I did visit it a few times. But no, I didn't have something like that. I can kind of get the appeal of kind of like even just from like a documentation like perspective, because that'd be nice to have right now. All those role plays archives to access. I don't know if you can still access yours or not.
I cannot. That shit is, I think, gone, or it's on a flash drive somewhere.
Okay. At the most, I remember I used to save like pictures. Like there weren't that many back then, right? Like say a pirate Paul Burchill or something, but I would put
I'm
some in
sure
there that
Dennis
maybe
probably has a bunch of things.
I have everything.
He has everything.
yeah.
I have, before our hosting, the first time. I don't care who took it over when somebody tried to rebrand it, revive it. Before that, I backed up everything, all the files, all the databases, everything. I have it on a drive.
Of course you do.
Let's see. The GWF file is about 10 gig.
Sounds right.
It's about 10 gigs of files. The databases aren't too terrible. Yeah. Even the boards, the role play boards is about 17 megs in size. So I mean, I have all that. I have everything.
See, I put up the thing that he made during the last one, because Canyon should be women's champion.
Right. Yeah, I watched that one back. I kind of forget how that came to be now.
Because we were talking about me stealing the title from Aaron when he finally won it at Snitsky.
Yeah.
And then, well, I might as well just win the women's title too. And then
Man,
Dennis...
and Aaron was like, out of character, like a top baby face, like
yeah,
to screw him over, it takes a lot.
Yeah. Again, it wasn't my plan. It was just like, I've got money in the bank right now. We're gonna close this Fed in a month. Do I just hold the briefcase to the end of the month? Like, I mean, or do I cash it in, win the title? I had a bigger storyline that we talked about last time of what I wanted to do when I won the title, or won the Money in the Bank. I don't know if you remember, but I think you were the first person I confided in when I wrote the role plays for WrestleMania where I won Money in the Bank. And I said that if he doesn't win the Money in the Bank, I want him to die in the ring. And I set up that role play so that he would die in the ring. And I remember telling you that, you being like, that is the craziest fucking thing I've ever heard. That is stupid, yada, yada, yada. Then you read my role play and you were like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. You completely have set that up with your role play. So if that happens, it's not out of left field.
Well, now I'd like to see that role play again. It had that much of an impact.
I don't know where the hell it is, but basically I just had it. I remember doing it in like quick little scenes of him waking up in the morning and being just battered, bruised, not being able to stand, trying to walk to the bathroom, cutting to a promo where he's talking to JR, cutting back to the hotel room, getting out of the shower, just miserable, kind of on autopilot, and then cut back to another promo, cut back to him leaving his hotel room, potentially for the last like time, and he does a quick look back, like that it's the last time he's gonna see it was either a hotel room or his house, but it's like his last time going to see that. And I try to do that without actually coming out and saying it. But that's one of those role plays where I was like, no matter what happens, I win here. Because either Canyon dies, which is epic, and I don't have to role play as him anymore, or he wins Money in the Bank, and I could do this other idea I wanted to do with Money in the Bank, which is hold it for an entire year. And then do a storyline off of that. So I was like, either way, I win. And then, yeah, I ended up winning. And I really feel like I ended up winning because most people either didn't show or sucked. Like, I don't think I deserved the win compared to like what somebody else potentially could have put up. I just think the competition at that point in GWF, there wasn't much. Like, we were at the tail end of it. That's why we closed like 4 or 5 months later. It wasn't like it was back in the day where you kind of got to bring everything you got.
And that's what, to me, like, that's part of what, you know, makes e-fetting last, is that competition, right? I mean, I think there are some people even like today in e-feds that I've heard of this concept of non-competitive e-fed. So basically just booking feuds and writing them and maybe writing some role plays too, but there's nothing competitive about it. No wins or losses.
The hell is the point?
Plays, right? Yeah, I mean, I can get it from like just a pure writing perspective. Maybe you get something out of it, but to me, I need the competition to just stay motivated.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the things, at least for me, GWF, because there were so many people, there was all that competition. I wanted the only way that you get better in anything is you go against other people that are good in it too, and you get better. Like, I remember, as I mentioned earlier, like reading your role play, knowing I lost, and going, okay, I got to get better. And if I didn't have that and I just kept winning, I don't think my role plays ever would have advanced or got to the level that they got at of storytelling. And I felt like in other e-feds before GWF, and even when I left GWF to go to a different one, like, there wasn't that level of competition. I even think it's going to sound braggadocious, but there was a time where you and I talked, Dave, where we were like, we could probably hit up any e-fed right now and probably take the world title. Like, and maybe we don't, and maybe that's just in our minds and our ego, but the level of competition at that point was just very high in GWF and literally could usually trounce anybody else. I'm pretty sure that was you and I that had that conversation.
Yeah, I don't know who else it would have been.
That's fair.
But yeah, I get what you mean. And I mean, even then, for an event to last, it can't just be like, say, you, me, and Ash writing against each other, because that gets boring too. People passing a title around, right?
Yep.
You still need a good amount of people in the end, and towards the end of GWF, there just wasn't.
Yeah, it did feel like we were kind of passing the title between buddies.
People. Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably should have asked this first because it makes more sense. How did you get into e-fetting, Dave? Because everybody that we've had come on, like, I've asked that question. We've talked about how I got in, how Dennis got in, how everybody else got in. Like, how did you get into this world?
As I recall, the first like exposure to it was that kind of chat room e-fed thing where you could have quote unquote wrestling matches in a chat room and basically type in the wrestling moves like roll up, unpretty, or scoop slam, pin. And then someone else would be the referee and typing 1, 2, 3, or you'd have to type kick out. I don't know if you know what I mean, but
I do remember that. And it's so funny because I think I forgot about that till you just said it. And I remember you having to like type in kick out before the referee got to 3, right?
Yeah, it's basically just having a wrestling match. There's no like creative writing aspect, really. Although I remember saying like choosing to be Christian or whatever. I don't know what creative writing aspect there was to that, but you had to choose somebody. And then I guess you use their moveset, right?
Yeah.
So there was that, but then actual e-feds, it somehow springboarded into actual e-feds. I remember maybe Christian being my first ever character that ever wrote a roleplay as. Maybe I'm gonna say that was like 2004, and then yeah, I didn't know about GWF until maybe late 2005, 2006.
Was that before or after you had to have a login?
Before, after what?
You had to have a login?
Oh, yeah, I remember needing a login, yeah, for GWF.
Okay, because when I first joined it, there was no login. And then Dennis got the infamous letter. from WWE
Mm.
telling them that, hey, you need to shut down. And then that's when the username and password thing became a thing. And then when I tried to go to it the next time, I remember having to go to a friend and being like, why can't I get in here? Oh, because this happened. I was like, well, can you send me an invite? Oh, I'm all out of invites because Dennis set a limit for people.
Oh yeah, I remember the invite limit. Yeah.
I get why you did it, but I was like, damn it, I'm trying to get in here.
Yeah.
That was an interesting time. I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of learning on the fly right there. That's like, oh boy, what next?
Yeah, especially you get this threatening letter. It's not like you're making a profit from this thing.
Right. Yeah. No,
It's like,
it's actually
you're taking
costing
a
me
risk
money.
for what
Yeah.
reason?
Like, yeah, I'm not fronting any kind of lawyer fees for this. I did also get a letter or an email or something from somebody who said they owned the GWF name, probably the actual, wrestling fed from way back when. And I looked it up on one of the government websites where you can check the trademark and stuff, and it said it was expired. And I replied, I'm like, hey, according to the government, the trademark's expired. So, and then I never heard anything again. And so I don't know if it was just a power play to try and get some kind of money out of me that I didn't have, or I'll give you 20% of the profits, which means you're gonna actually have to pay me. Um, yeah, those were the two things I remember as being like, huh, what now?
The fact that you did most of the stuff on the fly, and then you did most of the stuff because you didn't want to have to do it yourself, so that's why you added in all the admin stuff. The fact that you did all that and then it lasted all this time up to when we closed it, like we didn't have to tweak much. I didn't have to come to you about very much when I took over running it. A couple times here and there because there were issues with some either of the coding or that time where we didn't get hacked, but there was something wrong with the code. They got all screwed up, and then you backed up everything and re-uploaded everything. But other than that, like everything held. Like it held really well. And I know you said that if you had to do it again, you would have done it completely differently. But for what you did, learning on the fly and keeping out WWE, it's kind of impressive. And then to be, at least from my experience in all the eFeds that I was in and ran, like the pinnacle. It had the most cool stuff. It had the best interface. It had it had an unbelievable roster because of all that too. Like it was the pinnacle. And the fact that it wasn't like you came from this giant background of, hey, I've been coding for 50 years, so now I'm going to create an eFed. It was literally learning on the fly. Which is completely different than, like, that's how I felt role playing was when I first started role playing. I'm learning on the fly. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That's how I slowly started to learn HTML so I could make colors for how I role play. So I can make my character's name red and the text white when he's talking, and make the scene gray so it stands out between everything. Like I learned all that because of role playing, and then learned layouts, and then I learned PHP because of that. But it sounds like on such a smaller scale with less stakes than you when you were literally running the whole thing and getting letters like that and emails like that, and you're just like, oh shit, I was doing this for fun and now there might be real world consequences.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like you don't think about it's just like, hey, we're just some guys doing some stuff, and then you get a letter from a company saying you're using our property. I'm like, yes, but it does. Maybe. Sorry, is that good? Does that work? No. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But I guess on the other side, I was also dumb enough that I didn't care. I didn't care is not the right word, but didn't think of what could happen. Be like, oh, we got to fold. Duh. It was like, okay, how do I beat them at their own game now? Like, what can we do to hide? Like, oh, I know. I'll put a name and password.
A lot of them folded.
Yeah.
Lot of them folded.
I know we weren't the only ones to get a letter. I know it was kind of a sweeping thing at that time, and I remember like, I'll put a name and password. That way, the only thing they see is our custom logo, which isn't their property, it's ours, and they can't. And then I have to approve anybody who signs up. So I'll try and check the IP address, where are they coming from? And I was like, for the first 6 months, I was like, let me check that IP. Who owns that? No, not at WWF.com. Okay. You look good. Hence the invites, right? We didn't have open registration. You had to invite them. So, hey, you people that we brought in, it's up to you. Like, don't invite somebody you don't know, that you haven't seen doing stuff, because it could be a WF person, and then we'd be in trouble. There was method behind the madness, and
It was a good method.
it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
I'm still surprised that WWE didn't capitalize on the amount of people that used to be in eFeds. Like, I'm sure there's still a community out there, but at one point when we were first starting it, it was gigantic. Like, I don't want to say gigantic when you compare it to other things, but for the level that it's at now compared to what it used to be, was gigantic. If they have to send out letters, that to them means that it's significant enough to do that. The fact that they didn't create their own one, hey, you want to pretend to be our superstars, yada, yada, yada. They could have set it up so people could post role plays, and even had a screening process. So, like, if it's on their official website, you can't say anything too derogatory to whatever. Like, they could have set all that up, and they just didn't. They just put out a thing like, hey, you guys are fans, and you guys are doing something that if people don't like wrestling or do this, they could look at it and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll check out wrestling now. Nope, we don't want you to do any of that. It seemed counterproductive to do that. But I kind of understand it, because if I'm pretending to be Triple H and I make him just massacre a bunch of children, that's probably not a great look for them.
Right, but at the same time, it's kind of just like, I mean, there's so many like fan fiction communities right now, right? I don't know, so many different ones, and they're probably doing a bunch of crazy shit as like Harry Potter or something like that. So I
And
don't
that
know.
was the thing. That was that came up a lot. Is like, hey, I want to be my own created character. Like, well, sorry, we're not doing that yet. This is what we are. I'm like, I knew there were other eFeds with create a character where you controlled every aspect. And I think some of them were massive, if I'm not mistaken. And I just didn't want that fight. I'm like, no, we got our own little niche market here. This is where we're going to be. So, and that's where it was like, well, just choose an unknown person, and then you kind of spin it that way, do your own little thing.
What did you send, Dennis?
Your role play hosting.
Oh God, that's gonna bring me back. There's oh yeah, AJ. Oh yeah, I forgot it was AJ Styles for a little bit. Angle, Miss Brooks, Canyon, The Miz. Forgot about that one. The not so great Muda. Oh, that was Eric Young pretending to be Muda. Yep. There are some Canyon role plays. That's got to be the last Canyon role play then. The 221, which means the ones above that. I probably have within those ones you just sent, probably the last one against Dave and that Money in the Bank role play that I was talking about. Well, I'll have to look at those later. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that you still have all that stuff. Like, I think about others that have had hostings that's just gone. Like, the only way to really look at anything is if you use, what is it, like the web archive?
Wayback Machine, one of the two.
Yep.
I knew there was stuff that I didn't want to lose. If I lost it, it wasn't the end of the world, right? I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. But I was like, if I had the opportunity to download a backup before anything happened, I have tons of hard drives in this house. Let's just toss it on one, and if I need it, I got it. And I'll tell you, for the last 15 years, it's never come up. I haven't really used much of this stuff other than like, I remember working on some of this stuff. Man, that takes me back. And then we start talking again, and now I've actually looked at more of it. So
yeah, I think it's one of those things. When we weren't doing like Dave and I have kept kind of in contact here and there. But him was kind of like it for a while, and then like once in a while Bear, but not too much. And then when I started doing the podcast, thinking about like, well, I kind of want to talk about wrestling. Oh God, eFeds. How do I talk to the people I used to talk to all the time? Now, granted, I didn't really talk to you because you were also pretending to be Kevin. But like Dave, I talked to every day for years that had to do with GWF stuff, either about like getting results up or role plays or updates, especially when he was helping out with a bunch of the stuff. I talked to Ash probably every other day. There were so many people like that we interacted with on a daily basis that just don't anymore. It's such a weird, I don't know, when you look back, like I think of friends from high school that I don't see anymore. Like there's some that I do and I still talk to constantly, and some of my best friends in the world. And I think of the other ones that are like more acquaintances. And I feel like everybody from GWF, especially for the like a solid 4 years that I was talking to at least once a week, were like good friends, but online friends that now have become basically acquaintances. Like if somebody reaches out and says hi, I'm gonna say hi, how's it going, yada yada. But there's not much there. So to have the opportunity to like talk to you and actually meet you through this, grab Dave, grab Amber, grab Aaron, grab Devin, grab Bear, grab whoever else that we can, just to reminisce and shoot the shit. Like, I don't know, maybe it's our generation that's like, we're very nostalgic about shit. And this makes me very nostalgic. It gets the juices flowing a little bit too. It's never gonna happen. Like I'm good. I'm tapped out. But it gets the juices flowing a bit of thinking like almost every time we do this podcast, for the next week, I have so many damn ideas in my head for role plays, for storylines, for things that we could be doing. And they eventually goes away, which is good because otherwise I'd go crazy and probably look at doing it again. But for like a week straight, I just have it just flowing, and it's kind of fun. It's fun to like look back, think of those times, how much fun, even though it's frustrating, just look at the good times, and then just be able to know other people kind of had the same experience. Like hearing from you the first time we did the podcast, Dennis, was cathartic. Listening to you complain about stuff and be like, I went through the same thing for fucking years. And I know, Dave, if you listen to any of those, which I think you did, like I know when I stepped away at one point, and it was you and Ash running it. I know you guys had to have felt the same things too, with the constant updates and people complaining and needing to write results and all this other shit. And it's just, it wears on you, especially when you're supposed to be doing it out of love and passion and all that stuff, because none of us are fucking getting paid. It just wears on you and wears.
Well, plus, of course, you were always doing most of the work, so that made it quite difficult. But you're right. I mean, I think there's so much knowledge in like our collective heads that otherwise maybe like you might remember my role plays more than I do in some ways. So
I've read a lot of role plays.
yeah. And so the only way to get some memories back is by talking about it.
And then you get messages from people as the Fed owners, right? You get, hey, question about my record. I'm 4-0, and on the roster page it says I'm 3-0, and on the results it says Canyon becoming 3-0. I defeated Buff, Batista, Show, and now Gibson, just for future reference.
I don't know if that happened. All right, that's crazy talk. I wouldn't send things like
November
that.
5th, 2005, or sorry, November 4th, 2005, one of the two, depending on time zone.
Sometimes you don't need a good memory. It's just all there.
Yeah, sometimes I have receipts. No, it's fine. Those are the things that come up, and it's maddening. So kind of to circle back to a point, you said, I wonder why WWE didn't cash in on something like that. That's the reason. When you talked about the non-competitive role plays, where you're just kind of setting a match, so you do it, that's the reason. Because when somebody loses, the second they talk, why did I lose? I don't think I lost. I thought I won. What? He didn't beat me. I won. And then, then you're talking about something like Money in the Bank, which is a concept post me, which is just, I like the idea. Again, I like it in real life, and I think it's a neat idea that you have this concept where this guy could cash in on you, but now you have the same concept of like, why did he beat me? He cashed in his thing. Why did he win? I didn't get a chance to even role play against him. How do I? Oh God, I can see the messages coming in, and it's like it gives you a PTSD from seeing that for years. I don't know how many times I had to try and defend, right or wrong. Again, choosing a winner and loser was not a science. It was more of a coin flip. I don't know how I would try. Like, well, now I actually have to go and nitpick both. It's like, well, look, you had a spelling error. That's the only reason. Like, I don't know. Like, oh, you forgot a comma. Sorry, that's it. That knocked off a letter grade. Sometimes there wasn't. Sometimes that's just what I felt like doing. Sorry. I thought you guys could make a story out of it. Prove me right or wrong. Man, it's those kind of things that just like, that's why you have these kind of, well, that's why WWE never touched it with a 50-foot pole. That's why you end up with this non-competitive stuff. It's just, it's the end result of you have somebody winning and losing, and then somebody's always not happy.
Yeah, and especially when it's only one person needing to decide, makes it way tougher to deal with.
I tried.
in
Actually,
general.
that was an idea I did try in my waning days, was the results committee, and
Right,
We still
right,
use
right.
that.
you could go in and you can vote. Like, the problem is again, you're relying on people that aren't paid, that have other lives. Again, I wanted a life. I didn't have a life because of GWF. But they would go off and do things. Again, some people may not have had much else going on during certain times. Some, I think we've talked about KJ before, of this was kind of your escape for a while from certain things. That's great. Now there's two people deciding. Fantastic. Two's not enough either. I tried to put a results committee. I tried to get a writing team. Everybody's like, I want to write matches. Yeah, that's cool. One person might write half a match and then say, oh, something came up. Nothing came up. I know nothing came up. You just got bored and you want to go do something else. I get it, because I do too. It's so hard to get, unless you started offering people money, like, I will give you $1 a match into a bank account that I don't have, just to help me through this, or every time you vote on a result, you get a quarter, and then at the end of the month, I will pay out whatever you voted on. I have money to do it. I barely had money to pay for the hosting and the domain name and the everything else that went along with it. I wasn't paying for that either. So, holy hell.
I mean, in my defense, I was 4-0 or 5-0, and you
I
didn't
guess
update
so.
it. That's completely on you.
Are you surprised I didn't update it?
At the time, yes, just because GWF was like that machine. And when you're just role playing, you don't think of the other side. And then when I started helping, and then I took over like running it, holy fuck, it's like a completely different animal and experience of what you're used to, and everybody sending IMs or private messages or emails of this, that, or the other, or I have this idea, or why did you do this? And yeah, it definitely got, like, it was definitely my escape for a while, with the way life was going, like way back when, 2007, 2008, 2009. But as soon as like that escape like faded, and like I stopped drinking the Kool-Aid of it, and then I just looked at it and I was just like, fuck, this is a lot of work. Like, but I love GWF, so I'm gonna keep doing it, but my heart is not in it. And like, I think it showed a little bit too with some of the decisions that were made, or the half-assedness of some stuff, compared to in the beginning, where it was literally my passion at the time. Like, it's the only thing that I thought about nearly all day. Like, what can we do about this? How do we make this better? How do we get more people? How do we change this feud? How do we get more people talking? And it just was always running in my head. How do we become better? Okay, I got
Treating it like you're actually like Because they treating it like you're actually working for like a wrestling company.
Yes. Yeah,
That's what
that's
it was like. Like you're
exactly
actually
what
getting
it
paid a
was.
salary.
I got paid
But it's a
negative.
one-man show. Like you don't have anybody helping you do the graphics or the website
Right.
or the booking
Right.
or the writing or the. You are it. That's it. It's you or nothing. And it really grinds. And I was the same way. Like when I was running it by myself. Well, that's why I kept the ruse up of Kevin, Bill, and myself up for so long, because I could hide under the McDermott character and be like, cool, I can turn that off. I'm gonna go hide as Dennis for a while. And Kevin's not home right now, and Dennis is here. It gives you one from the outside in. It makes it look like there's more people working on the site than there is, right? So, oh, look, they've got this. Look at this ship. It's not just a person, because I think that might scare people away, knowing there's one person running this whole thing. Look, there's actually 3 people. So if I keep up the ruse to look, every once in a while they all make an appearance. They're here. Cool. It really wasn't the case. It was just me with different hats.
Well, that admin page too was like it from the outside looked amazing because you have senior staff at the top, which was you, Kevin, and Bill, and or Ash, and or Sam at one point. Names there. Then you had additional staff or people that had other access, and then you had below that people that just had writers access, and it just looked like it was I mean, it wasn't, but it looked like it was a giant community of everybody helping. So it always from the outside until you start getting into those roles looked like it was a well-oiled machine. And part of that was, okay, things aren't done. You took it on yourself. And that's what I learned when I took over was, okay, this person said they'd write a match or said they'd do a segment or said they'd do this or that, and it's not done. Well, yes, if I want this to go out and be done right, I'm doing it myself. And that's what I'm doing. And then that in the beginning, I didn't mind much because I was like, great, it still gets out, everybody's happy, yada yada. But then when it's like every week, every month, every year, it's like, fuck, that's very demanding. Like my current job isn't that demanding.
I'm gonna run and say goodnight to the kid, but then I got a point to build off of that.
That's fine.
Give me 2 minutes.
You're fine. So Dave, when you took over, when you started helping out more, was there a reason that you wanted to help out more? Did somebody ask you to help out for GWF, or did you just be like, well, I want to help?
I don't remember exactly. I also don't think I just said I want to help out of the blue. I'm gonna make an educated guess. It was Ash that asked me. If I had to guess, maybe it was you that asked me, one of you, but you don't remember asking me. I don't know.
I don't.
Um,
I thought you were helping before I even started helping, but maybe I'm wrong.
Really, I don't think. No, I think it all coincided with you running stuff. I'm pretty sure.
That's probably true. I probably was like, hey, this guy's actually role playing every week. Like maybe he wants to help out with some more shit.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it seemed like it was kind of a practical necessity because I was never overly interested in doing that stuff. Maybe match writing or I mean, you always wrote your own segments, right? You didn't have to write segments for other people. That wasn't part of it. I just remember writing a lot of matches, right? I remember updating roster pages. That was always fun. Speaking of records. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was asked. I don't think I just volunteered out of nowhere.
Well, okay, well, you're definitely different than
before
me.
the admin pages.
What's that?
At least you guys weren't around before the admin pages existed. Those were built by me out of necessity. That was updating every one of those by hand on a results night was. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something else I could do. I'm going insane. Oh God. So yes, those were all built one by one. As I'm like, there's got to be something else I could do. I'll spend a weekend looking at this somehow, somewhere.
Well, yeah, the functionality of it made updating things like it's a lot of work to update that stuff, even with the admin pages. Without them, oh God, like I remember having to do like when we changed all the colors and we changed the logo and we changed that, like all of that was a giant pain in the ass. But I can't imagine before we had some of the other stuff because it would have just been literally every single page update, then move to the next page update. And if you're talking about roster pages and you've got one for Canyon and one for Paul Burchill and one for Daphne and one for Eric Young, it's okay, I updated that one, go to the next one, updated that one, go to the next one, updated that one, go to the next one. Without just being able to, because I still think you had to do that in the admin page. You'd have to click on like Chris Canyon's name, update the record, hit update, go to the next one. But that's a lot easier than opening up the HTML or the page source and okay, he had 13 wins, now he has 14, and then save, open the next one. Yeah, that functionality was definitely better. What point did you have to make there before you left?
Oh, so you were talking about when people say I'd write this and it didn't happen, or I'll do this and it didn't happen. Those were the things that irked me the most, because it early on it was just me and I had no life. I didn't care. I was, living at home. What am I going to do? I got TV on. I'm going to do this anyways. Big deal. You have to into the 2000s. Like, I want to go out with my friends. I want everybody's going to this bar later. I think I just want to go hang out. But it's Friday night and here I am writing results. And man, I really want to fit. Like, you get home and from work and you're like, man, I better get booking because I want to go out. I think everybody's going out at like 10 o'clock. I want to be able to go out by 10 o'clock. This ain't looking good, because everybody was supposed to have their results in, I think, by like 5 o'clock or some arbitrary time. And it's like, crap, I got to write 10 matches and 2 backstage segments. I'm like, and then that's when I started, like, I think I put in something like, if you missed 2 matches in a row, like if you said you're going to write something and you didn't, then you were off the writing team, you wouldn't get the emails or something anymore. That was great in theory, but then it just means I just didn't have anybody on the writing team anymore. It just wasn't like there were actually people doing it. I think I'm just kicking people off and nobody's signing up.
Right.
That was the worst. Just feeling that, like, the week is Friday nights. Friday nights going into a pay-per-view. I'll tell you, for me, that was the absolute worst. To know that we did, from what I remember, we did Thursday nights. The card is finalized. Like, you got to get all your stuff in by Thursday night, and then we'd finalize the card. So then we'd had technically like 24 hours or so to work on it. Forget the fact that I got to sleep and go to work. Doesn't matter. So you had that time, but it wasn't always perfect. So you're going into Friday. So let's just get into the Friday. Fine, let's get SmackDown out, or Thunder. I think it was Thunder. We'll get Thunder going. Great, I'm going to go out. Come back. It's Saturday. You're like, I got to do this again tomorrow. Damn. Like, oh, and then because we do stupid things, I get to do it again Tuesday. So I get card, day off, card, day off, card. And it's not like those days off. Let's face it, they weren't days off, right? You're always doing something. There's new people applying. There's new things to check out. I got to update this, or a new match was announced for the next pay-per-view. I got to update that card because if I don't, I'm going to hear about it. It was never ending. I think the Wednesday, like, I think I was like, Wednesday was the only day I ended up with doing the dev stuff, like, or non pay-per-view weekends where I could do the flash animations or work on an admin page or work on, it's like, every other day there's just like normal content going on. I can't keep up. It's just crazy. So those times where people didn't write the matches they said, or segments or whatever, listen, there were a lot of times that I found old matches, changed a bunch of names, and posted it because I stopped caring. Just I had to get it out. And if you caught me, I think a couple times a couple people caught me, but at least a lot of people didn't say anything if they noticed.
So it's funny to me because I think back of how I kind of first got introduced to you / Kevin, who is still you, was writing all those matches for like 4 cards in a row just to show like, hey, I'm trustworthy. You can trust me to do more stuff. And then from what Dave said while you were gone, I asked him like how he got into helping out. And it was probably either me or Ash that was like, dude, we need some help. Like, come help. And I feel like that's how a lot of it is there are some people that might want to help but don't understand how at the time. And it's really hard when you're in that position. And I don't know if you felt this at all, Dave, when you were kind of in charge, where people were like asking to help, and you're like, I don't really trust you to help. Like it's really hard. Like GWF, definitely for me and definitely for Dennis was our baby, just at different times raising it. And like you don't trust people because most people suck, and I don't mean that in a bad way, except that I do. But people have lives, people get bored, people don't want to, like, people have good intentions. I think when everybody offers, I don't think they're thinking that they're gonna bail. I just think that things happen, and then they're like, or they want to help, and then when they try to help, they're just either bad at it or don't know what to do, and then they're just like, I just won't do it. It's not that big of a deal. But then when you're us, who's our baby, it's like that's a huge deal when we're relying on somebody else or knowing that, okay, now it's going to come back to me. So I don't know how you felt during that time, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, on the one hand, it's hard to, the more people that you ask for help, right? It starts getting way too overloaded. Because how many people can have decision-making influence in one EFED, right? I felt like three, at one point it was three, right? That was a good number.
Yep.
And of course, GWF in the earlier days had one person, three fake people, right? Two fake people. So it still had that number of three. Seems like the right number there. I don't remember asking people for help myself. Maybe aside from say help, maybe we needed special assistance on deciding a match. I do remember doing that, right? Like maybe match winner opinions.
Yep.
But nothing else with much more weight than that.
So if you haven't realized yet, Dave, sometimes Dennis and I take this time to, it's basically like therapy, to like think back of the frustration times. Even though we both loved it and did it for years, as I'm listening to both Dennis and I talk, I'm just like, I mean, it's not like anybody should do EFEDs ever again with this frustration.
Well, plus though, it's like maybe a lot of people, most EFEDs don't last a while, right? And
Yeah,
GWF lasted what, not 2 decades, but I mean, it was approaching that.
Yeah, we were heading that way. I think we were on year 16, 17 when we closed.
Yeah. So
technically the official starting date was somewhere in 97. Probably more end of 97.
And we closed in, was it 2013, 2014?
Yeah, maybe 2014, 2015, I'm going to say one of those.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, the point is, the longer you do something, the more it's going to frustrate you typically, or you're going to get bored / overburdened by it, burnt out. So
definitely burnt out. Definitely burnt out.
A lot of people will just open an EFED, run it for maybe maximum 2 years, and then it's done. So it is a pretty unique situation.
How many of them didn't make it 6 months?
Yeah,
maybe 2 months.
I was gonna say if an EFED lasted more than a year, I stopped joining EFEDs if they weren't there for a year, because it's pointless. Because I knew I'd be potentially get invested, and then it just closed. I had I want to say 6 different experiences within 1 month. It closed. Like you joined, you role play, you help out, and then within 1 month, the owner's just like, I'm out.
And almost always when it closed, right? It was completely abrupt. Like someone claimed they got hacked.
Yes, and it was always coming onto a pay-per-view. They just didn't want to write the results, because all these people did. Oh, we've got 23 matches on the card. Fuck, I gotta write 23 matches. Yeah, fun times.
Yeah. Was it though?
There was more good than bad, or at least now that I'm looking back on it, it's the nostalgia glasses. And I remember how much fun I had creating stories, how much fun I had coming up with ideas with Dave, with Ash, with the others, and coming up with something fun for the characters to do that I wish I could see on TV. I, in the beginning, loved doing all the updates. Loved it. I loved having like a pristine web page that showed all those updates, the automatic thing that you set up. So it showed like January 18th, 2024. I updated the roster, the champions. It felt like an accomplishment to show all the shit that I was doing. But that eventually ran its course. Like that can't hold on forever when it's one person doing it. Like that's gonna slowly dwindle down, and then you're just like, oh god, I should probably do an update today because someone's gonna complain about something. I guess I'll go update this. And I tried to mostly do like the updates when the results were posted. So if I could post the results and do all the updates at once, it meant that I got a break. Like if I put in 6 hours right now and could just get it all done, I might have 24 hours where I don't have to update a thing. And for me, like that was at a certain point, after you get frustrated enough, like that was bliss. But it was almost like an addiction with GWF because I didn't want to let it go. I even now think back of when we closed it, and it still hurts me to go, fuck, we closed that thing. Like that was a lot of years of my life that we had. If we still had the people in it, I don't think we would have. Or I would have had to found somebody like me, like Dennis found me, or I found Dennis. Like I would have had to find another KJ that could fucking do this stuff and then just ride off into the sunset. Maybe they would have invited me to their podcast.
Yeah, the next we didn't get that next generation.
I know. Like that's what I feel like. It felt like we were the next generation after like Dennis. But there was nobody after us that came on. Everybody that came on afterwards either didn't understand it or they had good intentions but no follow through. And it just kind of like
they just didn't stick around, or they ghosted, or whatever.
Well, you look at the new iterations of GWF that happened. That's exactly what has happened. Good intentions, and then just dead.
Maybe good intentions. I'm not sure.
Well, that's fair.
Either.
I really want that.
When did I email you? That was November of this past November, and somebody wanted to open it up again. I'm like,
as in like 2 months ago, you mean?
Yes.
Wow.
I forwarded to email. I'm like, look at this, because it was one of the things we talked about last, and it was, I don't remember who it was. I could look, it's on our email chain, and I was like, hey, I want to see if I could buy the GWF from you. It's like, it's 2023, man, let it go. Like, it's done, man. Like, this is not like reviving some old company.
Just get your own branding at that point.
Just, I don't care, make your own GWF website, but it ain't mine. Like it. Yeah, I mean, I got reached out. I mean, I guess at our, I guess I can't say pinnacle, but I guess when we were hopping, we'll say anyway, that's when everybody, hey, I'm opening up my own Fed. Dennis, do you think you could help me? Forgetting the fact that Dennis is also Kevin and he's working on the site. But hey, can you help me make a layout? Hey, can you give me one of those flash things that you do? I set up so many sites for people. No admin pages, but just like got the bare, framework going. And like we said, they were a month later. There was nothing. It was the same thing I set up for them. It never went anywhere. I'm like, cool. Thanks for wasting my time. Like, I tried to be nice. I didn't see them as competition. I just thought, hey, yeah, great. Somewhere else for people to go.
So it was Tommy Sharon who emailed you, and I think it's the guy that used to be super crazy in GWF for a while. That's the name that rings out to me. I could be wrong, but that's the first names that pop in my head when I say that name. And yeah, when we shut GWF down, it was for a reason. Like, it was dead. There wasn't any reason to keep it going, and it felt like the more we kept doing it, especially with the Twitter, it felt like it was tarnishing the legacy of GWF, which is one of the reasons I wanted to end it, besides for just being so exhausted from it. But it felt like it was tarnishing it, and so when it got brought back again, I was just like, fuck. And I know Ash was a part of it when it first got brought back. I think it got brought back by Vinny. And I was just like, ugh, no, just don't do it.
And that very first time it was brought back, like, Ash was begging me to return, and I actually did, as Elias, I think it was. But then after that, I think there were more, maybe at least 3 more iterations or attempts. I never joined those.
Yeah. None of them lasted.
No.
hearing these names, right? Like, so to me, I'm thinking of like Rock, Austin, Cactus Jack, Triple H. Like, those are the big. Yeah. And then mid 2000s, I'm out, and now you're saying, "Oh yeah, I think I joined as Elias, and this thing was still running." I'm like, "Holy crap! Like,
Yeah,
that's
that recently, yeah.
that's that's a long time. Like, that's wow. Just the timeline in my head just can't comprehend."
Yeah. And I'm
And
gonna say that like first like fake out comeback was 2018, maybe. I could be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
probably.
I
I
remember
want to say
logging
it was a
in.
few years after.
I remember logging in at one point to see what happened. Like, I'm like, okay, let's see what they did, and like nothing worked. Like, links were broken, and the layout was all disheveled. I'm like, oh god, what happened? Like, it used to be,
Functional.
albeit, it used to be a dated look. It was definitely an early 2000s, style, but at least it functioned. Now it's like it's not even our logo. It's just some font, and the graphics are everything's just misaligned, and nothing works anyway. So I don't even know what the hell the rest of it mattered. Like, this is what I gave away. Like,
See,
man, where's
this
the
is why I
dignity?
said no to people that were like, "Hey, we'll just take it over." No, fuck you. Like, you don't know what you're doing. At one point, it was linked to a Discord, or some forum site. Like, you'd go to GWF, and either it automatically took you to there, or when you clicked enter, it automatically brought you to the forum. Like, they didn't even have like the web page up and going, like the normal stuff that we had. It just automatically brought you over there, and it's because people didn't
Yeah.
understand how to update the script. They didn't understand how to update any of that stuff. So like, well, if we just use the GWF name and link it over to this other forum, I know how to use a forum, and we'll just do it that way. And I was like, oh,
Yeah, just pure laziness,
yeah, laziness. And
lack of effort.
I don't think, I think part of it is us taking it probably a little bit too seriously, because it is just an e-fed. But when you put that much time and years and energy into that, like, it literally becomes, I thought about GWF every single day for years. Literal years. Not a single day didn't go by without me thinking about GWF, which it took probably a solid 6 months after we closed GWF for that to stop. Because I always had it like in my brain, oh, I got to go update. Oh, I got to write a match. Oh, I got to do this. I got to think about my character. Ooh, I just saw something on TV. That'd be kind of cool to do. Or something to tweak and change. And then at like the 6 month point, I finally clicked in that, like, oh, that's over now. Like, that chapter is done. There's no reason to keep having those thoughts. But yeah, for years, GWF was on my mind. And I was probably on our website for hours a day, every single day, even if it wasn't role playing, even if it wasn't updating something. I was on the website. Like, there's nothing in my life before that or after that that I've been on for that amount of time, every single day. Like, it was.
I was still paying for everything.
I appreciate it.
I mean, I know, right? You're welcome. I mean, well, until even recently, I don't know if it was this April or the April before when I canceled the hosting. It was one of the two, but it was that recent. It was within the last 2 years that I canceled the hosting. I still own the domain name. I will keep that. That's fine. That's my token. I'll pay the $12 a year or whatever it is to keep that. That's fine. But I was paying for the hosting still. I think it was Hosts with Love, because I think the whatever host I was using at one point went away abruptly, so I had to find something quick. And thankfully, I had backups and whatever the case may be. But I do remember recently just saying, cancel that bill, and yeah, it lived. So as long as I've been gone, I was never really gone.
Which, again, very much appreciated, because it would have really sucked to like come log in one day and just gone, and you're like, what's going on? Dad's like, nah, fuck this place. I've had
I think
enough.
I felt bad because I didn't know what was happening, because I knew you had run it for a while, and then I knew other people had asked you and me to run it. I'm like, I don't even know this. I don't know if it's still running. And every time I kind of logged in, I'm like, I saw the disheveled site, and I'm like, this can't be the actual site, right? Maybe they're doing something else. Maybe there's a page I don't know about, and I'm too lazy to go look because I'm too old. I'm too tired. So I just kind of left it, thinking maybe it's still active in some form or fashion. I don't know. It probably wasn't. But yeah, it was. It technically lived until at least 2022. The hosting was around.
Crazy that long. If you think from 97 till 22, that's 25 years. God, I wish we would have hit that mark though. 20 years would have been nice to hit for GWF. 25, obviously, even better.
I mean, it was really tough. I mean, early days were, I mean, glory days, whatever. You had enough people and the competition was there. You know, we talk all these names all the time, right? And then you see kind of when I bow out and you step in, it's really those names still now just in a leadership role. And you just said it yourself not 5 minutes ago. Who was next? You weren't really getting the incoming people like we used to. Defense have kind of died out, so it's a very small pool of people to pull in. Man, if they're not coming in, you don't have it's not just the next generation to run the Fed, it's just the next generation to role play. And you know, I understand what happened. As you guys explained it, like you went to Twitter just so that they could stay active. I can open the app on my phone and toss 160 characters and I'm active versus me having to go do something up. I have to go log into a website that may not look great on a phone because let's face it, mobile was never a thing when GWF was around. That was never ever considered. It was, oh yeah, I'm gonna go on my phone. So being on your phone and using the site probably didn't work well, if at all. So Twitter makes a little sense to me because I know we did that roster pruning, and I'm guessing that probably continued for a while after. Oh, you're not active. You're gotta go away.
The list.
The list. Yep.
Yeah, which maybe was
I
taken
should
seriously at earlier
sue
points.
Jericho, by the way, because that was
Oh,
my
yeah.
turn. But that aside,
Pretty sure he had the list before you in WCW.
oh, did he call it the list? That was Dean Malenko, though.
Oh yeah, that was Dean Malenko.
Either way, I called it the list.
And yeah, you're right, Dave. It was definitely taken more seriously in the beginning. Like people would be like, "Oh shit, I'm on the list. I don't want to lose this character. I'll go role play, yada yada." But then it just became, "Oh, whatever. If you kick me out, I'll rejoin. And I didn't really want to be this character anyway, or whatever it was." And the list sometimes felt even detrimental because we'd have a roster of, let's say, 80 people, and the list comes up and we have to kick off 30, and then your roster shows 50 people, and you're like, shit, man, that was almost half the roster. What are we doing? Like, why aren't you people more engaged with this? And it was hard to figure out what everybody wanted and to make everybody happy. And I agree with you that like by the phone with Twitter made sense. I hated it though. Hated it with a passion. And I was like, you lazy fucks, just get on your computer, spend 9 hours role playing. That's all I'm asking. It's not too much.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you can't get people to write something real or something decent, then maybe the place shouldn't be open, right? I obviously see it differently now, but
yeah, it's definitely different looking back, like having 2020 for it and having that different perspective. But
I mean, think 2020 would have been the year, right? Because no one was doing anything. We would have all been sitting at home bored out of our minds.
Right?
That would have been the year for the comeback, I guess, but that's long and gone now.
Yeah, that wasn't even in my mind in 2020. It should have been because I was just stuck in my house for like 2 years. That should have been like all those streaming services went through the roof, their stocks. Like GWF.
That could have. Hey, listen, what people are over here doing puzzles? Listen, let's start the GWF back up. There's your creative outlet instead of doing a stupid puzzle, right? Like that was it.
Yeah. Need something to do during that time frame, right?
And I don't know, you keep saying we took it seriously. I took it seriously, right? Granted, looking back, I'm actually glad it's not running today, because the web today, one, social media is just toxic across the board. It's just, it does, pick your platform, and they're all shit shows. Um, but two, security wise, is way different. I mean, security was never, again, you had to log in, but let's face it, anybody probably with a half a clue could have, quote unquote, hacked their way into the old GWF. And today, that wouldn't have flown. So, I mean, I work on web software today, and things like that are, you have audits, for security's reasons. And oh my, I couldn't even imagine trying to secure the GWF and keep things secure. And oh, look, somebody's using the same password they use for their Gmail, who's using the same password they use for their Facebook, and oh, everything's somebody, oh crap, there's a hack. Or not even a username at hack, but just like somebody hacking the actual website part of it. With, you get WordPress hacks all the time. You get, it's something of that nature. Man, I would never want to have that over somebody's head by themselves anymore.
Yeah. Like, it came around at a good time. I wish it would have ended better. Like, we did have one good last event at SummerSlam. I tried to get back every like legend that I could think of that would want to come back. Some of them showed, some of them didn't, and we still wrote matches for every single person that was on the card, whether they showed or not, because I didn't want the last show to look like shit, even though like it's more or less gone. The idea wasn't for it to like look like shit. The idea was for it to still look good. Um, so like, I think we had a somewhat proper send off. I still hate that they tried to come back. I understand why some of them did, that either weren't able to let go, or just like, oh well, the name is there, so people will flock to it because of the name, like WWE did with ECW, except it wasn't ECW. All these other iterations after GWF closed is not GWF. If it didn't have me, if it didn't have Dave, you know, when you joined the first iteration, were you doing any admin stuff, Dave, or were you just role playing?
No, no admin stuff. I know Ash was. It was Ash and Vinny, if I recall. It was former GWF person.
Yeah, well, I remember Vinny.
Hard to forget.
Yeah.
No, it was so hard just to get that role play across the finish line. Like it was pulling teeth. I mean, yeah, I was the opposite of motivated.
Yeah, I talked about this during the last one. So when GWF closed, and then I wrote my book that was just more or less for cathartic reasons. Like, I really, besides for when we have these conversations, I have no urge role play wise. Like, it just felt like I got everything out that I needed to get out. It was a fun and frustrating chapter of my life, but I couldn't even imagine trying to go back now. Like, and feeling like I felt when I used to write those role plays, where I went, that's fucking good. That's really good. Now I'd probably be looking at it being like, I don't fucking know. I don't even know where to start. What do I say? Like, it's a whole different mindset, because you're talking about now, like, if we closed in 14, we've closed in 14, 15, whatever it was, almost a decade ago. So that's, yeah, a long time to be quote unquote out of the game and even fathom what to do.
I think I missed. I think I said there was something. It's not that we didn't take it seriously. I think that's we did, right. I think we all did. We took it personal.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that's different. Being serious and being personal. So I mean, we took it serious. I mean, we made sure. I know you and myself at least. Results were out. Things were updated. I might have been miserable, but I was doing it. But when somebody didn't do something, it was personal. Like, I'm busting my ass over here for this, and you're not gonna even do one thing that you said you. It wasn't like, oh ho hum, let's just move on. It was like, I'm angry at you. Like, because it became, I'm putting my life into this project. It is personal now. So there's a couple different levels of that where it's serious, but it also means a little bit more when you put it 24/7 into this thing.
Yeah. But I don't think other people understood that. Like, again, you look at that admin page, everybody's helping. There's no big deal. You can do the roster updates. I'll do the rankings. This person does this. We all write a match. Results go out. No problem. No one understands that admin page just meant that they had the access to it. Didn't mean they were doing it.
If you didn't live and breathe it, you didn't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a taste of it, you might understand it now. But when you lived and breathed that for years, you just don't understand how personal a dumb decision became. It was to the point where I'm like, I need to get this card done so I can go out with my friends, because I need to get away from this before I make a rash decision and then ban somebody for something stupid. Like, oh boy, let's not do that. Like, let's not make a decision I'm going to regret later. So let's just get this done and get out of here, and I'll deal with things on Monday. I don't know. Like,
I will definitely say I banned a few people because they were stealing role plays or they were causing just issues. But I also remember banning somebody for fun and them just sending me this giant email pissed off, and I unbanned them. And then they posted one thing and I banned them again. That was more or less just entertain myself because I was bored and just needed a laugh. The one thing that bugged me and was, well, not the one thing, there was many things, but the biggest one that I felt personally is when somebody like got a title, IC title, world title especially, and then they didn't do like no segments. They didn't put in any effort towards creating a storyline with somebody to lead up to the next pay-per-view. And there was a couple times where they got mad at us. And I think it was when Ash and I were in the forefront. They got mad at us and they're like, well, why aren't there? We weren't even on the show. I was like, what do you mean? You've been here for years. You write your own shit. What are you talking about? Like, you won the title. You need to then do stuff with it. Like, this is your baby now. Like, this is your time to shine.
Yeah, and that's how I first won a title, right? I think it was the IC as the pirate. I just assumed that I would have to write a lot of segments and kind of figure out what the feuds were going to be, right? That was implied to me. Maybe it wasn't implied to other people. I don't know.
I mean, it was in the rules of what it like. Okay. We did have that rule page that specifically talked about it. And if you've been in the Fed long enough, like by the time you won the IC title, like my first European title, I think I won, and it was 6 or 8 months into being in GWF. So at that point, I knew what the deal was. Like, you got to write your own segments. You got to do, you had to use the challenge board to get a match. Like, you kind of know the process at that point. If you get to the world title, you damn well should know the process at this point. So why are you like, oh, well, why aren't these things happening? Like, what do you mean? Like, and I think they were used to the champion before that. They were writing the segments and they were just adding on people because, you know, you could do that when you created a segment. You'd be like, because you need their approval on the segment. So I think they might have been used to that, of other people writing it for them and them just being like, oh yeah, that's good. But them being like, well, why aren't I on the show? I just won the title. It's like, that's on you. This is your thing. Do whatever you want. Like, figure it out. And there were some people that definitely had the mindset of like other eFeds, or even in WWE, like, you're told what to do. You're told this is what's going to happen. You don't have the free reign. And in GWF, you basically had free reign, and part of that was by design. Took stuff off of Dennis having to write everything, but it also just gave you the ability to do these cool feuds. Like, look at I don't know how many feuds you had with Ash, but there were so many things you guys did with those that, like, a normal wrestling company might not be like, nah, we're probably not going to go that route. But you guys had that creative freedom.
Yeah, and that was what did I say? It was just, you see a lot of eFeds that run it that way anyway, with handler submissions. That was just part of the territory. I never thought it was even possible for someone else to write my segment unless it was agreed upon with the other the person you were feuding with, right?
Wait, really? Like, all other eFeds besides for GWF that I ever was a part of, unless they asked me to write one, everything got written like for us. You've never been a part of feds before that were like just the owner wrote everything.
No, I have. Did I say otherwise? Yeah, I have
Oh,
been
I
a
thought
part of that.
maybe you said it opposite or I heard it backwards. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so GWF was the one where you submit everything yourself, and then obviously you got to do that. You have that freedom, which I think, like for you, you mentioned it earlier about um, the creative juices, the creative freedom to kind of like write your role plays. It's the same with the segments. Like you have the ability to kind of do whatever you want. Hopefully it makes sense and hopefully it can lead to a bigger story and doesn't just, you don't do one segment one day where you're in therapy and the next segment you're on a yacht chilling with a bunch of hoes in a, hot tub, unless somehow that made sense within the therapy session. I don't know. But, if you can make it cohesive, it's a fun story for people. Like that's the idea of those segments is when you're reading results similar to watching Raw, you're supposed to get the whole experience. All right, so there was something else I wanted to say about GWF, but it's gone. It's gone. Must be all the damn gray hair. So I want to get into.
There was something else I wanted to say too, and now I kind of lost it. I think
It's the gray hair for you too.
Minutes. Yeah, it's really old man yells at cloud over here. Yeah, it's. I'm sure we'll think of it, and I'm sure we'll do this again.
Oh yeah, these are just.
It's. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I mean, you guys talking about segments there, and that's. I mean, problems like that were the genesis of there was an admin page for that, right? Hey, submit your thing, tag whoever has to be in it, and they got to approve it. And if it didn't get approved, it's not going to the card. Why? Because somebody sent me a segment once, said, hey, he's cool with it. And then I get an email later that, what is this? I didn't agree to have me on the card. Or I used to write segments for people and they didn't like it. I'm like, well, then write your own. I can't, like, I'm trying to write it in your style, but I'm not a mind reader either. So if you want it to flow with your character and words that you would use, not me, there's only one way to make that happen. And sometimes it worked.
Yeah, I like that because I agree with you. Like I try when I was running other eFeds, I tried to write in their style. Like you want to do it off of what the character is, but then you want to read their role plays and go like, okay, that's how their spin is. Let's do that. But no one's gonna know how I'm doing Canyon. No one's gonna know how Dave's doing Paul Burchill. Like we know it because that's the character that we've been doing all these role plays for. So it's a lot easier for me to write a segment about it. And then when I add in, like, if I'm going to do a Canyon Paul Burchill segment, I'm going to try to write it as if I was Dave, but then send it over to Dave with the admin tool so that he can approve it, or because you were allowed to edit it too, weren't you?
I think so. That sounds like
I
something.
think you could edit it. Yes.
Yeah, so you could edit it and then it gets sent back. And then once both people approve it, it goes to the admin segment thing so I can add it to the results. So then you were able to like just go back and forth without needing to technically be on like a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting nowadays and go over like, hey, you're going to say this, I'm going to say this, you're going to say this. You just had that ability. And yeah, just the functionality of that, it felt so much more freedom compared to other feds because you can just make those your own.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. So talking back of having the people to make decisions and bouncing things off of the early days when there were three of us, because that did exist for a short period of time. I can remember the times where there was three of us around one computer and you had the three head, maybe even four, depending like if our friends were over too. Like if there was the three of us and then maybe a couple ancillary friends and you'd all be part of it. There was your hive mind, right? Like, okay, hey, we think this guy should win. That is going forward. If somebody decided to spin up a new eFed, you need that power structure where okay, one owner doesn't work. I mean, it works from a perspective of getting things going, but as far as going forward and making decisions and honestly preventing burnout, you need that at least three-headed monster. Honestly, I would probably look in the neighborhood of like a 5-man crew, right, where you have dedicated people, which is really, really difficult to find in this kind of project that pays nothing. Not just for decisions, but like, okay, hey, can you handle this? Can you handle this? Hey, we have one guy for the tech stuff. We have one guy for, you know, setting up matches, one guy to handle talent relations, right? Like, wow, there's just like you need that kind of thing. So when I get emails like in November, hey, I want to buy the jet, like present your business plan. If it is just I want to run the Fed, get out of my email. If it is I have these 7 people lined up, then okay, put me in a meeting with them because I know I want to talk to these people. Like there are life lessons. You know, we've talked about it in the past of like what we actually took away from the GWF as far as yourself and myself from either people management or tech skills or, you know, creative writing when we're talking with Devin. You know, it really goes the gamut of like, okay, what value did this actually provide besides taking our sanity? And there was I don't want to say some good, there was a lot of good that came out of it. So that is great. So if there was a crew that wanted to run the next GWF, I want to say GWF, the next EFED, GWF, FF, I don't know, make up some acronym. There's got you got to sit down and there's enough brain trust right here, right in this meeting alone that could say, here's the ins and outs. Have you thought of this? Because if you're not ready to handle this kind of garbage, well, one, how are you going to attract people? That'd be my first question, right? How are you going to bring people to your new Fed?
Yeah, especially in 2024 now. Like,
yeah, it's 2024. I said 2023, but yes, it's 2024. So how are you going to bring people to your Fed? Okay, let's pretend that you got 40 people ready to go because you don't, but let's pretend. And then how do you handle this? How do you handle that? Man, I'm old and I'm yelling at cloud right now, but it's like, you know, 20-year-old me didn't know any of this, didn't know how to run a business. I still don't.
Although I think that if we talked to your younger self, you never would have done this shit. Like you'd have been like, "No, I'm good.
Oh God, no.
No, I'm good. Yeah, I don't want to get into this hassle."
I don't recommend it for anybody unless they're really, unless there was some end goal. Like, hey, I tell people all the time, like nephews and stuff like that. Oh, I think I want to be a computer programmer. I'm like, what do you want to do? I want to write games. Like, I'm like, well, no, you don't. But okay, let's pretend. All right, well, you know, find something that gets you interested. Don't just say, I want to write the next FIFA game because they all love soccer. So I want to write the next soccer game. I mean, game studios kind of suck usually, unless you find a good one. But if you want to get in a tech thing, if you want to learn programming, you got to start somewhere. Find a project. I always said, start a website, start a program on your computer. It doesn't matter. It's really easy. It doesn't matter what it is. Just find something that intrigues you. So if somebody came to me and said, I really want to get into web design and or web programming. Okay. There's a lot of places to start. I might look at something pre-built, like an application you can kind of download and customize. But if you want to start from the ground up, let's pretend. I want to write an EFED because I like wrestling and I want to learn programming. Honestly, that's where my passion came from for the GWF. We liked wrestling. The GWF had existed, and I just kind of inherited it as Kevin and Bill kind of did more and more college. But I wanted to learn programming. I wanted to do something more. I wanted to learn websites. That's the only reason it became what it did. So if somebody came to me and said, I want to start an EFED, okay, well, do you want to start an EFED because you like wrestling, or do you want to start an EFED because you want to learn something? If it's to learn something like a programming skill or a technology skill or even a management skill, fine, let's talk. But if it's because you're like, man, I miss the days when I could go role play, man, there were some good times. No, don't, because those are gone. They're not coming back. You might have great thoughts and you might have the best intentions of the world. Those times are gone.
That I agree with. I think you got to have both. I think you got to have the passion for wrestling or EFEDs and try to learn something out of it. If you just have one or the other, you'll get burnt out quickly because you don't have anything to gravitate towards. Unless, like for me, when I took over, like I needed that outlet. So unless you have something like that, but even that only gets you along so far if you don't have either the passion for it or trying to learn something from it. I know, like for a while when it was Dave, Ash, and I struggled with that a little bit just because I was, I don't want to say power hungry, but that's the word that keeps popping in my head. Like it was hard to give up to control. Like this is what I'm doing. You guys have given me control. I think everything is working, and now you guys are like, no, we're gonna do this, this, and this. And it's like, I don't like that. Like this was working when it was this way, but then when you take a step back, you're like, yeah, I could really use the help. And I've learned because of GWF, which I've taken into the real world and jobs. I can have the best idea I could ever have. It's never going to be as good as a collective idea, because I'm going to say something and then you're going to hear that and maybe tweak it a little bit and it gets even better. And then Dave hears it and he tweaks it. It gets even better. And it's an idea I never could have come up with without collaboration. But in the time when you're in it and you're younger, you're not really thinking about that. It's really hard to give up that control because, again, like it was like a baby, and I didn't want anybody to fuck anything up. And if it wasn't done my way, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. Did it? No, but that's kind of was my mindset at the time. I still want time because I know I still want to talk about WWE. But I know we've been like hammering the GWF thing, and it's because it's kind of fun. It's so much fun to fucking talk about this old shit. Dave, do you have any, because you're new to the podcast right now, anything other GWF wise before we jump into the Rumble that you want to talk about?
No, nothing to bring up out of the blue. I mean, yeah, to me, it's just considering everyone was so typically in E-Feds, people are pretty young, or at least they were then, right? Teenagers, 20 somethings. The fact that people that young could pull off what they did is a massive accomplishment, I would say. There's probably a good reason why all the E-Feds closed within a couple months, right?
Well, I gotta think.
You're not wrong. Actually, I think maybe that's why the GWF did it, because we were just out of high school, right? So let's face it, it's not like we were early teens. We were at least our lates, right? So okay, we're entering college, we're doing that thing. Like, okay, we're not completely wet behind the ears, but we're still pretty dumb. So okay, cool. That's a fair point, because I don't know how many of these people that emailed me asking for site help and stuff, they could have been 12, 11, 13. Yeah. I don't know, somewhere in there. They have no idea what I didn't know. I didn't ask. I didn't care. Like, okay, you're starting to fit. Here you go. You're right. The younger they are, they probably had no clue. And the biggest, widest eyes in the world had just, oh my God, what did I do? And bailed.
Yeah, I mean, it's typically an impulsive thing, it seems like, to start an E-Fed. People get this grand idea and then it just goes away, just like that.
The juices start flowing.
Once the hard work actually becomes necessary, then it's gone.
Right. Oh, I gotta have to learn. I don't know how to do that. Oh well, I guess I'm done.
Well, I'm telling you, with these podcasts, like especially hearing everybody's like nostalgia towards it, there's times where I'm just like, fuck it, let's do it again. But it's short-lived. Those are short-lived moments in my head. But it's just because when you have the people on the podcast and you hear the passion that they used to have back then, it brings those feelings back up. But I feel like if we were to do it, it would be a wide-eye thing in the sense of, this sounds great. Ah, fuck. There's so much work. What did we do? Why are we doing this again? Didn't we already do this? Didn't we already live this chapter of our lives?
It would be a great week. Like, we'd all have fun for a week.
And then that first pay-per-view or card came up and you're like, oh, God damn it. What did we do?
All the build-up and like everything because you'd spend time a few weeks before building. You're not writing role plays. You're just kind of setting the site up. You're giving, oh yeah, I can get ready. And then that first actual week, and then you'd be like, God, I remember why I hated this. That's it. That is how far as it would go.
Yeah, so like I have no intention, but it would literally have to be like where TV shows come back into a movie. So it's a one-off thing. Like that'd be the only thing that could possibly make sense. That still sounds like a lot of work for one thing.
Yeah, you could do like single reunion shows every, I don't know, whatever interval you want. few years, whatever.
We'll wait till 2027 because what is that? The 30th anniversary of
There you
GWF?
go.
Wow. Okay.
That's only 3 years away, boys. You start putting out the feelers now to everybody and be like, when did you guys start? Was it March?
It'll be right there with my AARP card. It's fine.
You could celebrate them both together. Oh God. All right, let's change track to real wrestling. And let's go to WWE and the Royal Rumble, which is the road to WrestleMania. I'll mention, even though both of you are aware, I'm finally going to my first WrestleMania, spending entirely too much money. Going to see like the ECW type tribute show on Thursday, going to SmackDown on Friday, which also has the Hall of Fame, going to NXT Saturday, and then WrestleMania Night 1 Saturday night, then WrestleMania 2 Sunday, and then Raw Monday. So if I don't get sick of wrestling by then, I'll be very surprised because I still love wrestling, but damn, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Are you working on your cardio now? Because that sounds exhausting.
It's gonna. Oh yeah, totally working on my cardio. Yeah. But yeah, it's gonna be the first one. It's WrestleMania 40. There's talk about The Rock being there, which, dude, if my first WrestleMania, The Rock shows up, I'm all about that shit. I don't care that he's been gone forever. He was like number 2 or number 3 favorite wrestler for me when I was growing up. Obviously, Austin for me was number 1. But I mean, that'd be great, especially the buddy I'm going with. Kind of fell out of wrestling, but his favorite was always The Rock, and now there's this random chance that it might be Rock versus Roman. So that'll be cool as shit. Entirely too much money. I think you guys have both been to a Mania, right? Dave, you've been?
Yeah, I've been to a couple. The last one I went was New Orleans. I think it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it was a long time ago. I went to 18 in Toronto.
Wow. Okay.
That's was 18 was rockin'. Was 18 rockin' Hogan? Oh, you bastard!
It was like I was 8 years old again.
Yeah.
I can remember we were all sitting up, kind of in the nosebleeds. Didn't matter. You were there, and there was a younger kid, probably in the 8 to 10 range. As you have, the brain trust, screaming Hogan because just reasons, and you have this kid in front of us chanting Rock, and he just looks up, and I think it was Bill. I think he's like, "Don't stop cheering for your guy. Just do your thing." But you had an entire arena just turn on The Rock, and this kid felt so bad, but we didn't care. And then,
I mean, it did give us Hollywood Rock eventually, though, so that was kind of cool. And that got set up because of that moment at WrestleMania. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, minus the bank account, because I'll be on the floor, but I'm not going to be like first section on the floor. I'll be second section. But
are you going to hold up the GWF logo?
Dude, I thought about it. I totally thought about it. Or Chris Canyon, something about Canyon. Who better? But I doubt it. I just kind of want to experience it all. Because I don't know if there'll be another one. But it's kind of cool that this is, WrestleMania 40 is the first one. And that it all it's been starting with, there's all these storylines that have been happening for a while, but we all know like the big push for it starts at the Royal Rumble. Which by the time this airs on Monday, it'll be this coming weekend that the Rumble is. So I'm going to save the men's Royal Rumble for the end because I want us all to talk about that. But let's start with the women's Royal Rumble. They've announced some participants in the women's Royal Rumble. I know that they've announced Becky Lynch, Nia Jax, Bianca, Bayley. I think some more may have announced, but those are the ones I know of. There has been, what is this, like the 6th or 8th women's Royal Rumble match, I think. Maybe the 5th. I don't know. There's only one that's been bad in my mind. Like the rest have been pretty good. Like they've done a good job booking them, even for That's going to sound bad saying it, but even for the women, like, I mean, the men have had some really terrible Rumble matches too, but the women, they've only, I think, screwed up like once for how they booked it. So I'm actually excited for it because there's intrigue of who's going to win, whether it's Becky, whether it's Nia, whether it's Bailey. They could have a returning person. Dennis and I talked before the podcast started about Sasha Banks potentially coming back, because who knows? Because anytime if a wrestler says no, they're not coming back, then they show back up anyway. So, Dave, what are your thoughts on the Women's Royal Rumble? Do you have a clear front runner? Is there somebody you want to make like a surprise return?
I mean, I would say probably the most obvious choice, right, is Becky, just due to the likely match with Rhea. And I've always liked Becky, I mean, since she came up to the main roster. But I think you could still make that an interesting storyline without her winning, and she could still challenge for the title without her winning this Rumble. I think, to me, the favorite seems to be, maybe another favorite is Bailey, right, to challenge Io for the SmackDown Women's title.
Especially with everything going on with that story, yeah.
As far as like total surprises, yeah. As far as total surprises, you might know the name Julia. Are you aware of from Stardom, the women's wrestler?
Oh, yeah.
There's been rumors about her signing with WWE, so that could be a big surprise, but it's not supposed to happen yet.
I know there was talk about Liv Morgan potentially coming back.
Yeah, I like Liv. I just don't think she's a big enough star to win.
Right.
I would say.
My only concern with Becky is, I mean, she's already won it. So I would agree, like, I don't think she needs it. She can win the Elimination Chamber match if she wants. And, like, that's how she challenges. She's already won it. I don't think there's a need to do it again. And she won it in a way where she lost the title earlier that night and got hurt and then came out and still won it. So she already looked crazy strong. I think that you need that. But you could have Rhea cost her it, or somebody from the Judgment Day cost her it, because that doesn't want to happen. Maybe Nia eliminates her, then they have a feud, or then they have a match at Elimination Chamber or something, and then one of them goes on to face Rhea. What about you, Dennis? Is there a front runner in your mind or a surprise that you want to see?
I mean, surprises, I go to the one-offs, right? Like somebody who just shows up one night, one and done, right? That's what gets your pop, right? Isn't that what people? I mean, you love the returning Edge and stuff like that, but
dude, the returning Edge was one of the craziest things I've seen.
And the fact that that turned into another, run as an actual full-time wrestler is great. But I'm thinking of, like, you always have somebody that's back. Michelle McCool always makes an appearance, right? Like, she always just happens to show up. It's like, oh, that's Michelle McCool's music. Great, it's her once a year that she shows up. Those, I always look forward to some of those, and I'm wondering if you get something like, I don't know where. I know, like, Alexa Bliss was pregnant for a while. I don't know how long ago that was, because time means nothing to me anymore. I'm not sure if that was greater than 9 months ago now. I actually forgot.
I think she's already had the baby. I just don't know how long ago it's been.
Yeah, so that's about where I was too. But for a one-time thing, like, you don't have to be in the greatest shape. I think Victoria showed up a couple times and didn't. Not me talking bad, but didn't appear to be in the best ring shape. But you're there, you do a couple spots, you're out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of, like, pop you get to just say, hey, look, I came back, and then one and done. I there's been so much, like, I would, if Sasha Banks doesn't show up in some capacity, I would be very surprised. Just, again, one and done, maybe turn into more. I guess you read some of the dirt sheets and it's didn't want to offer the money, but then you're also not showing up on AEW yet, so that, to my knowledge. So to me, that just screams like there's something there. And then I think they were at TNA at their thing this past weekend or whatever.
And what's her face dropped the title? Naomi. So Naomi maybe.
There you go. So
debuting.
There's another name that might be coming. Like, okay, like, again, That'd be fun. Let's see where it goes. Do I think Naomi's gonna come in and win? Yeah, probably not.
No,
Final four maybe. Sure.
definitely could do Final Four.
Uh, I honestly like. Part of my gut says Bailey, and then you do the spin and you set up something with Io Sky.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be
It's just it feels weird to break up a stable like that just on a turn like that, but
well, they've been setting it up.
that's what my gut tells me. Yeah, like that's just kind of where my gut's going. Is it feels like that's the time to do it.
I'm wondering though, can they pull a swerve and instead of Bailey turning on or them turning on Bailey, what if they turn on Sky? Like rather because right now it seems like everything is setting up to turn on Bailey. Like that's almost every segment with them not helping in the match last week. All of that like just seems to be like, oh, this is going to be a big thing where we're going to get Bailey out, especially with them bringing on Asuka. So I'm wondering if there's a swerve that you can pull there that could be done in a correct way, where everybody assumes it's going to be Bailey that gets kicked out, and it's not.
Well, if they hadn't just done it with Judgment Day, where they kicked out the leader and replaced it with a new leader.
Well, that was years ago at this point.
Maybe.
It's like yesterday to me. Days and weeks are condensed. You could have said that was like 6 months ago, and I'd be like, yeah, probably. You replace Bailey with like Sasha Banks or Naomi.
Yeah.
Your returning person comes in and that is your catalyst to kick that going.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be a swerve in the sense of people keep saying Bailey, right? Seems like a logical pick. It could also just be Kyrie that wins.
Yeah, that would be.
She's never won before, and she could easily face Io for the title. So,
especially if it's, I guess, her own group that helps her win and kind of maybe even screws over Bailey. Right. Then you have more to that story. Because now, okay, does she go challenge Rhea or does she not?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a possibility of NXT, but I don't think they're going to do that again this year. I think NXT is in its own place, which is fine, but it's not as hot as it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the only one I could think of having a shot from there is like Tiffany Stratton.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, and we haven't heard anything about Jade.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She could debut, but I don't know if you debut her at the Rumble if she's not going to win. And even if she does win, I don't think she's a big enough name to be like, holy shit, they brought her in and she won.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she was like kind of decently famous in AEW, but how many people watch AEW? I don't know.
Well, they haven't had a million show in over a year.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is I probably like more women from the AEW women's division at this point, like Toni Storm, for example.
I mean, how many people have, I mean, not to belittle debuting at the Rumble, right? But we've now talked about it with Naomi returning. I could think of like AJ Styles when he showed up for the
God, that was so cool.
Rumble. And to me, it's tough, right? As somebody that's more of the casual fan, I don't recognize a lot of the musics. Right? Somebody's theme's hit, and I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like they all sound very generic and the same to me. So if you had somebody debuting,
right,
and it's their music's playing, it's new music, so nobody's heard it before, and on the Jumbotron, it's their name. Me, a casual fan who has only seen maybe 2-3 episodes of AEW programming, would I recognize who that person is? It just doesn't hit home with me, right? Like, I guess it's a neat way to debut somebody, but it almost feels like if it wasn't really a name, I mean, I guess that it's not for me to decide. I'm not the right person. But if it's not the name that's going to get you the reaction that you want, do you have to build that person up or debut them in a different manner? I don't know. Like AJ Styles had been well traveled. He was well known in most circles when he debuted. So that's one thing. On the female side, honestly, is.
But you can debut at the Rumble without winning and still like, so AJ didn't win, but he did have
Correct.
a tremendous applause when he first walked out, and then he lasted for a long time, and
But
that's a way to build somebody up. But I agree, I don't think there'll be that reaction
Yeah, I
when
mean,
he comes out.
and plus I would say like she's basically huge, right? She's jacked. So
Yeah.
for somebody of that, it's like say Kane coming out for the first time and losing. I don't know if that would go over well. Say Kane had debuted at the Royal Rumble,
Right.
the Royal Rumble match, and then he just lost. I don't know.
yeah,
It's
you
tougher
got to
when
be
they're like
careful.
big.
AJ did. AJ came out, debuted, lost at the Rumble, and then went.
No, right, but like kind of not a
Jericho.
super big guy.
Oh
like
yeah,
like a
Yeah,
Haas. You know
he's
what I
not a monster, right?
Right.
You know, it's just.
but you think like if she's out there eliminating Nia Jax, if she's out there eliminating Jimmy Snuka's daughter. I can't
I mean, I
remember.
guess.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a fair point, right? Like if you had the classic big man spot in the Rumble where they come in and they empty the ring. Oh, I'm the unstoppable monster, and that's Nia Jax right now, right? Who's gonna get her out? Okay, yeah, bring Jade out here because immovable force, the irresistible force, immovable object. Okay, maybe that's a minor feud that, not for a belt, not for nothing, but two Hosses on the female side that could, I guess I haven't seen Nia Jax since she left the first time, so I don't know if her skills have gotten any better.
People claim it's better. I haven't watched any matches.
She's
I'm not
better
going to
than
speak.
she was. She's better than she was. It's still not amazing, but she's playing the character, I think, perfectly, of being that narcissistic person that knows that everybody hates her because she's quote unquote unsafe. I think she's playing it beautifully, and she's better than what she used to be. It reminds me a little bit of her original NXT run, when she was like feuding with Bayley when Bayley was the champion, where she worked great matches against Bayley because they did that the small person versus the big person dynamic very well. And how do I get her down and how do I win? Oh, I got to put her in a sleeper hold, things like that. Like that was done really well, and they seem to be doing a little bit of that, but she has more swagger now. And I was not a giant Nia Jax fan. Especially when she came to the main roster. It seemed like they were pushing her down everybody's throats for no reason because she's not amazing in the ring. She's not amazing on the microphone, but she has gotten better at both of those things since she's come back. And she almost has a presence like of Yokozuna a bit. And I don't mean that in a fat way, but I just mean like the presence of her is, she can just manhandle somebody, and the swagger of knowing like I don't have to fear anybody as I'm walking around, because I'm bigger than them. I think she does that very well. Where it goes from here, I don't know, but they do seem to be like building her up to be a challenger for Rhea. Does that mean she wins the Rumble? And does that mean she just gets a title shot at Elimination Chamber or something? I don't know. But it is better this go around, and I don't know if I'm guessing she's just been in the gym and at like the performance center working to try to get better, because it definitely is showing compared to what it used to be. So next is the United States title, Logan Paul and Kevin Owens. And I am a huge KO mark, and Logan Paul has grown on me a little bit. Even though he doesn't have matches every week, and he does go and like practice them all, so when he does have a match, it's pretty good. He plays a heel character very, very well, more than he ever did as a face. And I don't have a problem with this match, especially being like it's a Royal Rumble. Like this is just I hate saying it because it's KO, but it's a throwaway match. Like everybody watches the Rumble for the Rumble. The only other match on the card besides the Rumble, which we'll talk about next, is the world title match with Roman Reigns and LA Knight and Randy Orton and AJ Styles. Like that's a huge fucking match. But usually at the Royal Rumble, it's the Royal Rumble. Like those are the biggest ones. It's not very often. I mean, I think we had what was it, Rock, Mankind, and the I Quit match at the Rumble one year. Like that, like stood out more than the Rumble, to be honest. But like the main appeal of the Rumble is the Rumble. So this match, almost to me, like it's great to have it on the card. It'll probably be a fine match, but I don't know if I'm overly excited for it especially because I don't think KO's winning. But what are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't been following this a ton, but I would say I have seen Logan Paul wrestle a couple times, right? He seems pretty good. Seems like you have to, and again, I haven't been following this feud, but it seems like you have to give him the win anytime he is wrestling. You have to give him the win most of the time just because he's kind of still establishing his name, right? And at this point, Owens is, I mean, he's kind of been a jobber to the stars for a while, so it's hard to pick him to win too.
Well, so was it last year that he headlined WrestleMania night one? Him and Sammy versus the
Oh,
Usos.
right, yeah.
Yeah, like he was on fire at that point with the whole storyline with him and Sammy
Yeah.
and the Bloodline. Probably had one of the matches of the year because that match was so fucking good. But yeah, I wouldn't put him as a jobber, but I agree he's more of a gatekeeper, less
That's what I
of a
meant. Yeah.
main threat. And I think part of that reason though is like he was a main threat for Roman Reigns like all last year at the beginning of the year. So I think moving him out of that and putting other people there is probably a good idea because you're just going to get the same old. Dennis, what are your thoughts?
There's two thoughts. The wrestling fan in me, I just don't care for Logan Paul. I don't know. Part-time champion, kind of like, okay, I know he's around, but it feels like another just kind of a event like, hey, I'm a champion, but I'm here sometimes. Okay, fine. He feels like a part-timer. I know he's been more around lately, but still, that's my mind as the casual fan, right? As the realist in me, he brings in eyeballs. He's done some fun things. So the matches I gotta give it to him. Like I didn't expect any of that from him at all. And I'm like, damn, all right, guy's got some skills. Respect. That's great. He's business side. He's going to WrestleMania, right? Because again, he brings in eyeballs. He's got to be doing something at WrestleMania. I don't see anything happening at the Rumble to change that. I bet he takes this title into WrestleMania, and then depending where that shakes out, that's when your change happens. So I think you're gonna have your standard Logan Paul high spots. He's gonna do some flippy stuff, some jumpy stuff. I think Kevin Owens is gonna make him look like $1 million.
He's very good at that.
And then maybe this turns into something with the cast, right? There's something about a cast that is a big deal right now, right?
Like got a broken arm or a broken wrist.
Maybe there's something there. You work in some kind of DQ, a way to extend this into maybe not WrestleMania, but maybe the next event. That's the business side of me. The wrestling side of me says, Jesus, Kevin Owens should wipe the floor with him. But business wise, it works out. He's sticking around to WrestleMania. He's coming back. He might not be at whatever's in February. Is that Extreme Rules?
Chamber.
Chamber. There you go. It was something weird. I don't see him doing something there. Again, probably taking that month off and come back for the big one. Whenever that. That's just what I think. I don't see anything coming out of here other than kind of like you kind of said, it's a throwaway match. I think it ends in some kind of schmaz ending, and you forget about this other than maybe a couple spots from Logan Paul that highlight reel kind of stuff.
So moving on to a match I'm actually very interested in, and it's probably the first Roman match that I've been interested in since last year's WrestleMania against Cody. Because all the other ones is just like, yeah, Roman's winning. Like, it was kind of cool, like when they were dealing with everything. Like Sami Zayn versus him last year at the Elimination Chamber was electric and so fucking good. And then when they had the match, when was it? Was it Backlash or Money in the Bank? I don't remember which one it was. Where it was like the tag match where Roman finally got pinned, but it was in a tag match format with the Usos and everything. Like, that was good. But the title wasn't on the line. It wasn't anything like that. And like all the title matches that he's had since then were, yeah, they're whatever. They're fine matches, but they're, he's not going to lose. This is one where you could make the argument where he can lose without losing because it's a fatal four way. And you have the ability that if he does lose to one of the people, he can still have the match with The Rock, and the stipulation is for the head of the table, not the world title. So I'll be curious if they go that route and not do that, because you could still put that on as a main event at WrestleMania without the world title on the line. People might not be happy about it, but Rock versus Hogan should have been the main event. But it wasn't. And I think the match after that suffered because of it, because the crowd was so just exhausted from the Rock Hogan.
I'll tell you personally, that's exactly what happened.
You
You had the women's title match was after that, and we didn't stand up once or even pay attention because we were exhausted. And then Jericho Triple H was the closer. And as much as we liked Jericho, we just had nothing left.
there are certain matches that transcend that. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania should have been the main event, and it wasn't. And the people that followed it afterwards, I think, was Triple H and Randy Orton, and that match was mediocre at best. So you have moments like that where they can just be the main event without the world title being on the line. That's fine.
Well, plus I just think, like, logistically, is The Rock really gonna be a world champion for any like sustained amount of time? Like,
Right.
it
So
just
it
seems
adds intrigue to the match because you don't know who's going to win if he doesn't have the title.
right. Otherwise, you just assume Roman wins, or it's some kind of non-finish. Otherwise, because
Again.
it's hard to see The Rock being a champion. I don't know, more than a month.
Right. So yeah, I agree with that. So it makes kind of sense to take it off Roman, but does it feel anticlimactic for Cody Rhodes to not be the one to take it off him? Does it feel anticlimactic for somebody at the Rumble to win it? Like, when you're talking about this 1,500 day reign, whatever the hell it is now.
Well, also Roman doesn't have to be pinned, right? So
Correct. But
they
you're
could
still losing
really
the
skirt
title.
around it.
Still losing the title, though, and does that feel anticlimactic at the Rumble? Like, the Rumble's a big event, but if you've held the title for 1,500 days, doesn't that seem like it should be a WrestleMania? Like, when
It
you're
does. They're kind of booking themselves into a tough spot.
Yeah, which is what they did last year with Sami Zayn. Like,
Yeah.
Sami Zayn wasn't going to headline WrestleMania, but he headlined Elimination Chamber, and fuck, man, if they weren't going to give him the title then, but if they would have, that crowd would have blown that roof off.
Right.
But I think all of the people that are in the match technically have a shot to win it. LA Knight, they keep starting and stopping, which is kind of annoying. They have been giving him more now than what they were before. Randy Orton just came back and still looks good. AJ Styles just came back and has this whole new attitude, where he's kind of like a face and a heel, so more neutral. So yeah, anybody technically has the ability to win, and then obviously Roman is Roman, so he has his ability. Dennis, what do you think about this match, and who do you think goes over?
I'm torn. I really like that idea where you threw out like Rock Roman, but there's no title involved. That feels right, right? Like, but I just, there's a part of me that says you don't do a title change at the Rumble. I'm not saying it's unprecedented. I'm trying to think of it again. Hey, curveballs. This is the name of the game right now, right? Shock and surprise. It's things you don't see coming. I wouldn't see that coming. I would be shocked. But I'm thinking of it this way. So you go into this match, let's pretend Roman doesn't get pinned. And I don't know, one of the other three walks out. So odds are they're going to WrestleMania with that title as well. All right, who are they setting up to face? Because now we've just determined that it's not a rematch with Roman. So you're either going to say the winner of the Rumble,
Yeah, it's gonna be if
which
Cody Rhodes, I would say, versus whoever wins if it's not Roman, because then you can still finish the story. But it just wouldn't be against Roman because the story's never been about Roman. The story's been about winning that big title that his dad only had for like less than an hour or whatever it was.
right. So who are you going to sacrifice to Cody? The only guy I could put on that list is probably AJ. Because he seems to
He's got
Orton's been there. Orton's been there,
Orton.
done that. Like you don't want
Yeah.
you don't want to do the disservice to Orton. He's earned the right to veto that. Like, he's been there for
Although I
freaking
would
ever.
say, Cody and Orton do a lot of history.
Yeah, and this would be, I
WWE.
think, Orton's 16th title reign to tie Ric Flair and John Cena.
All right, that's a great point. I was thinking it can't be LA Knight because you don't want to kill him. Because if you win the title here and then you take it off him at Mania, then it's just kind of like you really deflated it.
Just a
Like I'd
transitional
rather
champ,
him lose here.
basically.
Yeah, he becomes the Jinder Mahal of 2024.
Oh God.
I know, I went there. To me, I could see, like I said, I think AJ just seems he has been around the block a lot as well. He seems probably less selfish in my mind. I could be entirely wrong, but it just seemed like if somebody was going to be a transitional champion, AJ just seems to make the most sense in my mind because he could turn around and have a great program with anybody else because he's still just a great wrestler, or continue a program with whoever he faces at Mania. But now you're setting yourself up for your Rumble winner, because I think this match plays directly into how you handle the Rumble.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I honestly believe that if I had to bet on this, I would bet with Roman walking away. I mean, it's hard to bet against that horse right now, right? Like that's just seems like if you're going to make that title change, that is a WrestleMania title change.
And what about
Seems
you?
anticlimactic to do it now.
See, that's what I was saying. I felt like it was climactic because it's Roman Reigns, but I agree with you. You made the point earlier of the shock, and they've done that a few times over the last few months, especially with Triple H taking like full control, especially with the TKO merger. Like it's if we can shock, that's the idea behind it. Like you don't want to just be this predictable nonsense that everybody just knows what's coming. Roman winning, even though I fucking hated it. Roman winning last year against Cody Rhodes was unpredictable because everything was in the cards for Cody to win. So them not to pull that trigger, even though I disagreed with it, was a bit shocking. So if they're able to shock us again, especially if they let somebody pin Roman, like they shouldn't do that, but that would be shocking too. Like if it's Randy Orton or AJ or LA Knight that pin Roman, I think that would dampen the Rock match. I'd rather have Roman not get pinned, somebody else gets pinned or submitted, and then Roman can still face The Rock and still hasn't been pinned in a singles match in however many.
Unless The Rock plays a factor in him losing. My problem is what do you do with? I understand Roman is not around every month, but if you just lost your title after 1,500 some odd days, you're telling me you're gonna skip Elimination Chamber?
Well, I mean, The Rock's going to skip Elimination Chamber too because
No. I get that.
it's in
I get
Australia.
that. My point would be not The Rock, but
Yeah.
as Roman, as character Roman.
Yep.
You're telling me you're just going to disappear until Mania? Like I show up at a show here and there, but you're not going to say I wasn't pinned, I want it back, if it's not at SmackDown, it's at Elimination Chamber. I mean, isn't that the standard booking 101? I mean, again, no.
I would say yes, but it would depend on how they do it. Like, if it's me, and The Rock costs him the title, you do some vignettes. You do some vignettes of.
That's the only way this makes sense to me is if during this match The Rock comes out and is the factor that he doesn't beat up of Roman, he just distracts him, and then behind him somebody gets pinned, and he turns around like, what the heck?
And dude, the look on everybody's faces would be very similar to when Brock beat The Undertaker, because everybody would be like, holy shit, okay, he just lost the title that he's had for all these days.
But then that would be the only way that turning Roman toward The Rock would make sense to skip elimination. Be like, I'll come back to you, basically, but I need to deal with this.
Yeah.
My full aggression is at The Rock because you did this to me. I'll get my title back. I don't worry about that right now, but I got to get you first. That's the only thing that seems to make that long jump, because there is a decent amount of time between the Rumble and Mania. That's a long time to fill, even with a person that's not there every night of the week. But then you could do your thing with, hey, The Rock can film something on location and we can air it on the show. And then the next week, Roman can film something. And then the week after that, you can have these. And I think that's how he kind of did Rock Cena for a while, right? Like, they didn't have to be at the same show at the same time.
Right.
Because you could do stuff. So just having him lose without The Rock being involved, his anger would then be to regain his title, as opposed to, oh, The Rock cost me my title, I'm angry at The Rock.
Gotcha.
So in my mind, that's where that would go, would be if The Rock doesn't show, Roman retains. Because you can't, there's no way you can just have him lose without that being, if you're setting that up for WrestleMania, there's no way you can have him lose without that.
If they're not setting this up for WrestleMania, like, what the fuck is it used for on January 1st?
Right, yeah.
Like, I will be so pissed off.
Like next year's WrestleMania is when this is getting booked, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I heard that rumor. There's a rumor
Really? That's
around about, like, at WrestleMania, The Rock's gonna be there, but announce that in a year we're gonna have this match. And because that's what he did with Cena. It was the night after on Raw that he announced, hey, next year Cena and I are gonna face each other. I'd be so pissed off. So pissed off.
If that's the case, then Roman's walking out of the Rumble with the belt.
He's walking out of WrestleMania with the belt then too.
Probably that too.
Yeah. All right, Dave, what do you think about the Fatal 4-Way? Who do you think's got a shot, or do you think it's just all Roman?
I think it's as we talked about. I think if Rock comes out, Roman almost has to lose if Rock interferes. Because I mean, it's The Rock. If he doesn't cause something bad to happen to Roman, it kind of looks weird. But if Rock doesn't show up, Roman basically has to win. But if it's The Rock interference loss for Roman, I would pick Orton. I think just due to the history of Cody.
I was thinking that
Punk,
too.
Who can make it work too.
I was thinking Randy Orton made the most sense if somebody was going to take it and then face Cody at WrestleMania, because Randy Orton is beatable for Cody, and they do have that story of legacy altogether. And I think Cody is the one that called him for Survivor Series, if I remember correctly, to be on part of their team for the War Games match. So you have that part of the story too. Like, I think that makes the most sense. But then, when we'll get into the Rumble in a second, but does Cody win the Rumble, or does Cody win the Elimination Chamber to go to the Rumble? Because those things come up too, which there may have just been a monkey wrench thrown into that. I don't know if either one of you caught Raw, and I don't know if Seth hurt himself or not. They acted like he did, but there's been kind of like no news on it yet. But that may throw a big monkey wrench, because I felt like they were leading to CM Punk versus Seth at WrestleMania to main event, probably night one. And I was on fucking board for that. Like, let's see that, especially live. But now with him hurt, who knows? But I was thinking Punk wins the Rumble and goes after Seth Rollins. Cody, if they take the title off Roman Reigns, Cody wins Elimination Chamber or some other number one contenders match and then goes to WrestleMania, and then you still get Rock Roman. So yeah, I think Randy Orton makes the most sense to take the title, not beat Roman, but win the title off somebody else. Probably LA Knight, because they love making him get pinned.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
That, not to break your segue, but I guess, going toward the Rumble, that's kind of what I was alluding to, of like, I didn't want to go there yet, but I think the winner of that match, in almost kind of whatever happens there, kind of leads you to who's gonna win the Rumble, right? Like, in my mind, and I've said that probably 100 times, so I could probably stop saying that. There is nobody else that could win the Royal Rumble right now besides CM Punk. And it's not because he's done anything to crazy, or he's the best, or he's, whatever. He has a limited lifespan in the public eye. I like CM Punk. I have a CM Punk shirt. I probably have a couple CM Punk shirts, actually. I was a CM Punk guy. I like CM Punk. But even I know he has a limited lifetime. If you're going to cash in on him coming back and this big hell froze over moment, him winning the Rumble is the only thing that makes sense for him to have his WrestleMania moment and be like, oh my God, hell froze over. He came back, and look, now he gets the main event WrestleMania after a decade away. Because that was his big thing on that podcast he did. I didn't get my WrestleMania moment. Even when I faced Taker, I wasn't the main event. And like, that was his thing. He wants the main event WrestleMania.
So the caveat to that is it depends on Seth, because there is no bigger match for CM Punk, except for against Roman Reigns, which isn't happening. But then against Seth right now, if Seth's hurt, does Punk need to win the Royal Rumble? Can Punk go into WrestleMania as champion? Like, if Seth's hurt and they are like, well, at the Elimination Chamber, we're going to decide who's champion, who goes on to WrestleMania. Does he have the ability to win the title then, and then headline WrestleMania defending it? Or do you need that moment at WrestleMania for him to headline and win?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they could always have it be a vacated title at WrestleMania, and then two guys are fighting for the vacated title.
You think
That's
they'd wait that
possible,
long?
I
If he had to vacate it in January, like let's say he comes out on Raw, and he vacates it because he's hurt, you think they're gonna bypass Elimination Chamber, especially with it being in Australia, and them wanting to put on a big show for them,
Right. It's
have
not
the title on the line?
Yeah.
Unless he's seriously hurt, like a torn ACL or a torn pec or something that puts you on the shelf for like 9 months.
It looks like the ACL or MCL or whatever the CLs are.
So that he's hurt that before, right? He blew out his knee once before. Now, it hurts. Okay, let's not get over that fact. Like, this is not like, oh yeah, you can keep walking, it's fine. However, part of me believes, unless it's something that is literally falling off the bone, there's nothing that's going to keep him out of a WrestleMania match.
See, I think Triple H would keep him out, and if he's facing
that's fine.
If he's facing CM Punk, the shit that CM Punk said about their doctors and making him work through injuries, there's no fucking way that he would go through.
If it's a legit injury, then you deal. That happens. It's the name of the game, right? But part of me thinks that, I mean, Victoria worked with a torn ACL for a very long time. She wore a giant brace.
Yep.
You can work. It's not, so you put him on a light schedule, right? You put a brace on. you don't do really anything until come WrestleMania time, and then you take your time off. I'm not saying that's the right choice. I'm not saying it's the healthy choice. However, once the ACL is torn,
Well, what was that?
That's pretty much the end of that. As you
Cody,
know, it's not going.
Cody's pec like last year or the year before, whenever it was.
Yep.
Like, and he wrestled that match, and God, that match was a great match, and it was gruesome to watch. And the amount of, I think he won over so many fans that he hadn't won over before because of that shit. And to hear him talk about it after the fact, because I think they did a 24 on it or something. And basically that's kind of what he said. He's like, it's already done. Like, it's gonna hurt, but I can't really do much more damage to it.
Right.
So I'm gonna have this match, and then I'm gonna go out and I'll have surgery. But we've literally been building this for 3 months. Like, I can't not have this match. It's just gonna hurt like fuck. Let's do it.
So unless it's to the point where he can't walk, like the first time he did, he actually blew out, I think, multiple ligaments, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
There's I think MCL's the outside, ACL's the inside, and PCL kind of goes through the middle. There's 3 main fun things going on there. I've heard enough of them via hockey to remember. Unless he can't walk, I don't see him not going, even if it means he becomes just, hey, I'm going to do some segments. Yep, I'm going to have a giant knee brace on. Not going to wrestle till April, and then you get it home. So be it. I unless it's just not that serious an injury. I mean, honestly, you can tweak your knee, and it's just, you're out 6 weeks and you're fine.
Which is what I'm honestly hoping. I one, just for Seth. Seth blew out his knee last time and couldn't do WrestleMania. He's now been the only active world champion for a while since they gave him the title almost a year ago. So for him to lose out on WrestleMania, especially, I know even though he's got problems with CM Punk, he knows that working with CM Punk would be huge for him, would be huge for WWE, be huge to headline WrestleMania, because he didn't headline last year. The year before that, he didn't headline. Like, I don't know when the last time he headlined WrestleMania. The year against Brock, they went out first. I don't even know if he's headlined WrestleMania. I don't think he has, except for when he cashed in Money in the Bank. So that would be a huge caveat for him too, to headline WrestleMania. So I hope it's not serious, but I'm in the same mindset for you that I don't see anybody besides CM Punk winning unless Seth is legitimately hurt and they're like, okay, we can give it to somebody else, like Cody again, or somebody else, and then we'll just have CM Punk win this other thing to go on to headline WrestleMania or to win the title ahead of time. But
he finished his match, right? Like, he didn't. Like, Rollins didn't get hurt and they stopped the match, right? It continued.
They finished, yeah.
So that's way different. I mean, so that screams way better than the first knee injury where it stopped.
Look at Triple H when he blew out his quad. He finished that.
Oh, sure. I'm not. Yeah, that was just stupid. But the first time he did, when he I think he jumped off the top turnbuckle or something, and he blew out his knee.
God damn it! What is that word? Sunset flip powerbomb. Yeah, isn't it sunset flip? But yeah, he does it on top rope, jumped off, tried to do it to Kane, and his leg just went.
Yes, that's right.
It was at a house show.
And then, I mean, you can see it with football players all the time. When your ACL tears, it hurts like an MFer. So that and your knee just feels unstable and it starts to swell up a bit. So if he was able to finish the match, now that might be more of a sprain, which is usually the 6 to 8 week time frame, and then you're fine. Wrestlers are a different breed, though, so they can put up with more pain than I think most people.
He doesn't have a match at the Rumble. Let it heal.
And then you just don't put him in anything for Elimination Chamber. You walk away from whatever you had going on, and you just
do promos, vignettes, whatever.
Yeah. Is it impossible for The Rock to win the Rumble?
It's not.
Just chooses Roman.
It's definitely not
That's
impossible. Which
We didn't talk about that.
I know, because I don't think it's gonna happen. Like, but it definitely could. This is one of the first Rumbles in I don't know how many years where I've actually been like, fuck, it could be this. It would make sense for the story. It could be this. It would make sense for the story. It could be this. It would make sense for the story. Like, there's so many of them. And last year, it was all Cody. Like, Cody was winning the Rumble. Duh. Whenever Drew won it, it was kind of like, duh. When, God, there was somebody else before that too. When they won it, it was like, yeah, of course they won it. Yeah, that's everything led up to that. And I hate those Rumbles. Like, everybody should have those stories going into the Rumble where it would make sense for them to win it. Obviously, we know the random people aren't going to win it. I get that. But there should be a solid 5 names every year that you go, yeah. I mean, Drew McIntyre technically could win it with what he's been doing. Any of the people that are in the match with Roman, LA Knight, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, if they then go into the Royal Rumble, still have a shot of actually winning it. Roman could lose the title match and then show up in the Rumble and win it. Unlikely, but technically possible. The Rock could show up and win it. Like, I love that about the Rumble. I love the unpredictability-ness of it when it's actually unpredictable. The year that Santino Marella almost won the Rumble, I was cheering for him to win the Rumble. It was him and
Del Rio was.
Yeah, Alberto Del Rio. Yeah. I wanted Santino so badly just because it was something crazy and fun. Or the year that Batista won, I wanted Roman Reigns to win that year. That's the year he got the record for the most eliminations, but everybody knew Batista was going to win. It was just like, fuck, give me something else. Like, throw in a twist and be like, holy shit, you caught me completely off guard. And I think this year, no matter what they do, because there's so many options, it's going to catch me off guard. Like, I won't be completely shocked, but I was like, okay, wow, they did go with this person when they had all these other people set up. So yeah, I'm on board for this Rumble. So I'm glad you brought that up, Dave, about The Rock, because it was in my mind, but I wasn't sure. Like, I don't want to be clickbaity when talking about The Rock, because it's already good enough that he showed up on the 1st of January and talked about Roman Reigns at the head of the table in WrestleMania. He went on Pat McAfee back in October or November and talked about the fact that they almost had a deal in place for him to be at the last WrestleMania, and he would like the idea to do it again. So, like, there's been these seeds planted. I just don't know.
We have we've seen an older Triple H win the Rumble too, so there is some kind of precedence for
Yes.
An older star to win.
Yeah, but I think unlike Batista winning it or Triple H winning it, people would lose their shit in a good way.
Sure.
Because it's The Rock. And then you also have the fact that The Rock.
Granted, Punk is older too. So.
The Rock was there the night that Roman won the Royal Rumble. Right? Remember, he came out to the ring. That was a terrible, terrible fucking Royal Rumble, by the way. He came out to the ring and everybody booed The Rock, which does not happen that often unless he wants them to. Like, he could not give the rub to Roman Reigns. So you have that history there that you could do too if The Rock does win, and then Roman comes out. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there. It's a fun time right now to be I'm still not watching this consistently, but it's a fun time to be like a fan going like, shit, there's some cool shit happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, it reeled me back. Like, I don't remember. It was around Survivor Series time frame. And then it's like it was they started dropping Orton hints, and I'm like, I'll start paying attention too. And then, Punk shows back up. I'm like, okay, I got Orton and Punk back. Like, okay, we're back into people when I was watching consistently. Like, okay, now what else do we got? And then The Rock shows back up randomly on a SmackDown at the end of the year last year. It's like, oh, okay, like I see you now. Like, that's all I need. I don't. I need the big pop and watch the people go bananas for The Rock coming out to his music for 7 minutes. Like, I'm good. There you go. That's all I need for once in a while. I'm back.
I mean, this is the season for it. You want to get everybody hyped for WrestleMania. Also, I will say, I was actually dreading the Raw after WrestleMania, because the last few years it has absolutely sucked. They've done no surprises. They've done no anything important. It's just been a meh. I'm excited about it this year. I'm excited about all the shows that I'm gonna see because, like, rather than just being like, "Oh, I'm going to WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania," I'm like, "Fuck, man, there should hopefully be some good matches on this thing." Like, it's weird. They're not as hot as they were in the '90s. They are more profitable, but they're not as hot as they were in the '90s. But they're pretty fucking hot right now compared to where we've been in the last decade. And part of
Yeah,
that,
it seems like it's hitting a stride in some way.
yeah. And this is when you need to hit your fucking stride. You're heading towards WrestleMania. That's
Yeah.
the big one. That's the moneymaker. That is everybody's pinnacle. It's now a 2-night extravaganza, which actually is longer than that when you think about Friday and Monday. But like, this is the time to do it so that everybody is firing all cylinders and everybody's eyes is on the product. So having The Rock is another way to put eyes on that product. I there's no way they can't do Rock Roman this year with the teases. Like, it's almost impossible, and it would infuriate me. But there's so many other matches that they're setting up that I'm totally interested in. Whoever Rhea Ripley faces, whether it's Nia or whether it's Becky or whether it's both, I'm interested in that if they heading to WrestleMania. The Intercontinental title, it's sounding like they might do Gunther versus Brock Lesnar. I'm on board. Gunther has had an amazing run as the IC champ and better than anybody else's run, not just because of the length, just he's had so many just classic matches. The tag titles, depending on what they do with Judgment Day and how they're going to do that out, it's less exciting than it was last year with the Usos and KO and Sami Zayn. Though the other women's title with Io Sky, who knows what's going to happen with her and Bayley, depending on who wins that match. So I'm excited about that. There's just so many CM Punk and Seth Rollins if they do that route. Cody, what he's going to do if he's not finishing the story. There's so many things that I'm interested in, which I don't feel like I could say many years in the last decade or so. There might be like one or two matches where you're like, well, it'll probably be a banger. Yeah, let's watch it. But I'm not like, fuck, top to bottom. There could be, unless they fuck it up, there could be some good cards.
And to your point earlier, like when I went to WrestleMania a couple times, I went mainly, because it's WrestleMania, I should go. Whereas now there's like independent reasons to go beyond it's WrestleMania.
Right. When I bought tickets, it was because it's WrestleMania, and it's WrestleMania 40. So that's a big one for them. And they usually, like, WrestleMania 30, the streak got broke. WrestleMania 20, I think that was Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. Yeah.
Taker coming back as Dead Man.
Yep. So they tons of things at that one. So WrestleMania 40 to me, I was like, well, the product's okay right now. It's not super red hot, but it's okay. So it's WrestleMania 40. Something crazy will probably happen. Now I'm like, damn, man, like I couldn't have probably bought tickets to a better WrestleMania at this point. I mean, maybe it all turns to shit, but I'll try to be an optimist right now and be like, everything is just on fire. So let's keep that going throughout. So if we had to do Rumble winner right now, like I think Dennis is CM Punk.
Unless something changes between now and then, yeah, I have to say Punk right now.
And I think I'm in the same boat. Although if The Rock shows up, The Rock wins. There's no way The Rock being at the Rumble doesn't win. Dude, if it was The Rock and CM Punk, the final two, they had a match at the Royal Rumble how many years ago for the title? Like, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I was actually that's a show I went to also. That was a hell of a show.
Dude, fuck you. Stop going to things.
I was really mad about it though. But yeah, that makes it so bad. Yeah, I'm just gonna take The Rock. I'm just gonna make it ridiculous.
So what happens if The Rock doesn't show? Who do you have? The Rock doesn't show.
It has to be Punk.
Has to be Punk, yeah. But I don't think any of us would be upset if it was Cody. Like, I think he's got a legitimate shot. I don't think anybody would be upset if it was Drew, although I think that one's a little bit less likely.
Kind of boring, yeah.
But if Orton or LA, especially LA Knight, because he's just like that pop would be huge if he ended up losing in the Fatal 4-Way, but then winning in the Rumble. Like I think other people winning it, I don't think any of us would be like, oh God, that was a terrible. I mean, they could make terrible decisions, but we wouldn't be like, that's a terrible decision. But yeah, it kind of has to be Punk unless something changes with the Seth Rollins injury thing. All right. Well, I've been keeping you guys for like 3 hours at this point, which is usually how long these podcasts go. It's what I expect now when we do this because we just reminisce and then talk about shit. So I'll leave it up to you guys for closing thoughts. I'll start with you, Dave. Anything about GWF? Anything about WWE that you want to say before we end?
I would say that I would totally be down for a reunion show. That's what I can close with, but not a real comeback.
Yeah, definitely not a comeback. Definitely not a comeback.
Yeah, if you said like let's do a reunion show, yeah, I would do that.
2027, so another 3 years. Be the 30th anniversary reunion show. What about you, Dennis? Any closing thoughts, GWF wise, WWE wise?
I'm sure we'll think of something GWF and we'll do this again for Mania. And that won't be that long away. So I will try to keep notes of GWF ideas that pop in my head when I wake up at 3 a.m. and my mind is going a mile a minute. I have a question for you two. So now, me, Kevin, and Bill, and the other friend group that have been together since like 3rd grade. Usually, what we used to do when we watched the pay-per-views together is we would make a grid on a piece of paper and write down our predictions. And as we grew up and moved to different states and or countries, in my case, it became like a Google Sheets kind of thing. But more than predictions, there was always one extra grid spot, and that was for fill in the blank. If you had a mystery thing that was going to happen at the Rumble, you could choose random guy shows up. Diesel's going to show back up for one night only again and show up in the Rumble. Doink the Clown's going to come and throw in a bucket of water at the announce team. Anything goes. I believe Kevin's favorite thing was to do something with the Macho Man before he passed away. The Macho Man would return, or the Macho Man would show up and do something. It didn't matter what event, Macho Man was doing something. So could be something backstage, it could be in the Rumble. If you had to choose one off the wall thing that you would love to see happen, what is it?
Dave, I'll let you go first.
It could be Santino Marella coming back and doing the Cobra to a backstage.
I did write a Santino once in GWF that made me remember. You mentioned him earlier. Let's see. I mean, you did mention Savage being dead and then wanting him to come back. Maybe Bray showing up at the Rumble. How about that?
The ghost of Bray Wyatt. I like it. That would be something.
Along that same theme. Kind of recent though. Hey,
kind
of pushing it a little bit, but yeah.
I mean, didn't we have Paul Bearer dying and then immediately CM Punk holding that urn and doing all that shit?
That's true. Yeah.
To be fair, I know Paul Bearer would have been on board for that shit. Like that's his, making a story.
Yeah, and Bray Wyatt would be too. So
yeah. For me, I mean, obviously, I think it's not that crazy now because he already came out on January 1st, but it's The Rock showing up. That would be crazy. Chris Canyon's been dead for a very long time, so if he shows up, great. If Paul Burchill randomly shows up as a pirate and swings into the ring for the Royal Rumble, let's fucking do it.
That would legit get a pop, I think.
Yeah, I think that would. If people remember, they should.
It's been 20 years now, so they'll know.
God, so long. But like a legitimate thing, like obviously I'm pretty sure we're going to get some surprises of former wrestlers showing up to the Rumble like we always do. Like X-Pac has talked about, or there's been rumors about him coming in and then him saying he's not, which kind of means that he is. We'll probably get some other like random things that happen, but I don't think I can think of anything that like CM Punk coming in would be huge, but he's already there. The Rock showing up would be huge, except he's already teased it a bit with the Roman Reigns thing. So the only thing I'll say is just because it's my favorite is Austin. If Austin randomly shows up to be in the Rumble, or to toast The Rock if The Rock shows up to win the Rumble or something. Anything Austin related would be my crazy thing to happen, whatever it is. Especially as now he's on Instagram with his barn cats and doing cold plunges. Guy's a national treasure.
The funny thing is, if you look up like gambling odds, betting odds for the Royal Rumble, every year Steve Austin shows up on that list. And it's always like 25,000 to 1 or 30,000 to 1 or something like every year.
Put that $1 down, man.
Every year he's on that list.
You never know. I mean, I don't think any of us saw him coming back and having a match that he had with Kevin Owens, which wasn't a great match, but it was a fun match, man. It was fun to have that nostalgia of Austin and it just in a brawl with Kevin Owens. I thought they did fine. They weren't the best match at all, but they were a great match. To be fair, the best match was the Sami Zayn Jackass match. But yeah, it's anything with Austin I'm good with. I hope he shows up at WrestleMania when I'm there so I get both Rock and Austin. Like I'd lose my mind. Hopefully
how about Vince McMahon winning the Royal Rumble this year?
Oh God. Does he come out with the stash, the new stash?
Yeah.
And the dyed black hair?
Amazing.
He looked so distinguished before. Now he just looks like a freaking, I don't know, porn star that's 30 years past his prime.
I was gonna say he looks like a soap opera villain right now, but
yeah, that works too.
Some combination.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for being here. And yeah, we'll do another one. I don't know if we'll do it before WrestleMania or we might do it after when I get back. So we could talk about like everything that happened. Because right now, all the ones we've done have always been like previews of the next event. I'm wondering if we do one after the fact so we can go like, how fucking cool was that? Or this didn't live up to expectations. And then getting my take of it from actually being there. You know, like, was it different in person than they showed on TV? You know, Cody Rhodes came out and they do the whoa chant. How loud was it? You know, LA Knight came out and people went berserk. Jey Uso had the crowd crazy, or did he not? You know, things like that I'm curious of how it translates versus or how it translates live versus on TV, because I've only done TV for WrestleMania. So I'll be curious of that. So that's probably when I'll set it up for like a week or two after WrestleMania and try to grab everybody again. And just get like everybody's post reactions to everything. But again, yeah, I thank you guys for joining. That's it for Talking Nerdy in the Bedroom this week. Next week, we're going to do something different again. Just setting up a D&D campaign and maybe video if I can figure that out, but it's a pain in my ass, so we'll see. But thank you guys again for joining, and yeah, we'll set something up after.
Sounds good.